Hello everyone, welcome to What If Naruto Became the New Dragon Warrior movie Naruto x Tigress. Before we start, please go support marioiale for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistake in character's gender, but of course Naruto is a male. Movie 1. Opening his deep blue eyes, Naruto looked around his room. It was just a basic room with a bed, a wardrobe, drawers, and a window with a perfect view of the Jade Palace, which is high up in the mountains. He got out of bed, stretched, and looked at the full-length mirror attached to the wardrobe. All he wore were black pants while his tails swished lazily behind him, all 9 of them. He was a 9-tailed fox and had dark orange, almost red fur with blonde hair on top. His tail and ears had white tips. He sighed and thought, another nightmare. It was like the rest of his dreams, reminders of the past he also wanted to forget, but he could never let go. He was pulled from his thoughts when someone knocked on his door. Yes? He called. Naruto, it's time to get up, said a teenage female voice. I'm coming, I am, he said as he put on his clothes. He was wearing black pants with a red vest open over his torso. He sighed as he opened the door and went down the stairs. When he arrived, he said, Good morning, I am, who was a brown cat with brown eyes and wearing an apron, said good morning. A man, Tucci, appeared near them. He looked like an old cat with his eyes closed since he was also wearing an apron. Both he and Iam have been with Naruto since he was 5, so he was practically family to them. They also own a ramen restaurant called the Kirakus. Good morning, Naruto. Can you help with the customers? Sure, she said, putting on an apron. She walked past the table and picked up a couple of bowls of ramen. Her 9 tails also picked up one each. As she walked, she couldn't help but glance at the Jade Palace, feeling like something was going to happen. Jade Palace. Master Shifu, a red panda, sat quietly in a garden playing his flute. As he played, he could sense 5 people surrounding him. Suddenly, a snake shot out from behind him, then a tiger, a monkey in front, a crane to his left, and a mantis to his right, all appearing, running and flying toward him. Opening his eye, Shifu stood up and deflected the snake's attack, ducked under the tiger's kick, leaped into the air, and struck the crane on the head with his flute, flipping the monkey and mantis over. He continued to dodge or deflect all of their attacks until he signaled for them all to stop. Well done, student, he said with a smile as they all stood up. You were trying to disappoint me. He pointed the flute at the tiger. Tigress, you need more ferocity. He pointed at the monkey. Monkey, greater speed. Then the crane. Crane, height. Then the snake. Viper, subtlety. Finally he gestured to the mantis. Mantis. Dash. He was interrupted by a bird. Master Shifu. What? He shouted back, pointing the flute. It's Master Ugwe, he wants to see you, he said fearfully, causing the red panda's eyes to widen. Shifu soon ran towards the Hall of Heroes. A hall that contained multiple legendary weapons and the Dragon Warrior Scroll. At the end, in front of the moon pool, a shell balanced on a stick could be seen. Once Shifu was close enough, he stopped and breathed calmly. Once done, he bowed respectively and asked, Master Ugwe, did you summon me? Is something wrong? The shell shifted, revealing an aging turtle, upside down. He grabbed the cane and stepped down easily, saying, Why must there be something wrong for me to want to see my old friend? So, nothing's wrong? A confused Shifu asked back. Well, I didn't say that, he said. Then he blew out a candle, then another candle, and then another candle. Shifu's right eye twitched uncontrollably while his jaw practically unhinged in disbelief. Taking the initiative, Shifu drew his arms back and then thrust them forward, which blew out the rest of the candles. Were you saying? I had a vision, Ugwe said, then looked Shifu in the eyes. Tai Lung will return. Shifu's eyes widened in shock as memories flooded back. He recalled all the destruction he caused. That's impossible. He's in jail, Ugwe smiled. Nothing is impossible, he said wisely. Sir? Shifu shouted, calling the bird who informed him. Fly to Chorgam prison and tell them to double the guards, double the weapons, double everything. Tai Lung is not getting out of that prison. Yes, Master Shifu. Xing shouted as he flew as fast as he could. Unfortunately, the bird didn't see where it was going as it flew toward a pillar and then left the temple. One often finds one's destiny on the path one takes to avoid it, Oogway commented. We have to do something, Shifu said frantically. We can't just let him march into the valley, take his revenge. Your mind is like this water, my friend. When it's agitated, it becomes difficult to see, he said, using his staff to touch the water, causing ripples to form. But if you let it settle, the answer is clear. As the water settled, and all the sakura petals moved, Shifu saw a reflection in the water. It was the dragon statue on the roof, and it contained the dragon scroll. The dragon scroll! Shifu gasped. It's time, but who? Who is worthy of being entrusted with the secret of unlimited power? To become the dragon warrior? There was a moment of silence before Oogway said something that almost made Shifu face guiltily. I don't know. Ikaraku's. Naruto walked through the restaurant ordering people around. Everyone smiled at him, and the children laughed. However, Naruto stopped what he was doing when he saw a duck's hand on a sign. Walking over, he read it and gasped. Master Oogway is choosing the dragon warrior today! Everyone got up and started walking towards the Jade Palace. Naruto was about to head there until he felt something being placed on his back. Looking over, he saw that it was a portable stove used for ramen. He saw that both Tuchi and Ayam were using them as well. What? Tuchi asked. We have to sell ramen, let's go! Everyone climbed up, and Naruto couldn't help but groan at the number of steps. By the time they reached the top, it was practically a parade with lots of partying. It's a historic day, Shifu said as he walked with Oogway, watching the tests being prepared. Isn't that Master Oogway? Yes, and I was afraid I wouldn't live to see it, he said with a smile. Is your student ready? Yes, Master Oogway. Oogway then looked at Shifu. Meet this old friend. Whoever he chooses will not only bring peace to the valley, but to you as well, he said, causing Shifu to narrow his eyes in confusion. Then a pig stepped forward, once everyone was ready. Let the tournament begin! Everyone clapped and cheered. Naruto, Tuchi, and Ayam started serving ramen to the animals that wanted it. Citizen of the Valley of Peace, it is my great honor to introduce to you Tigress, Viper, Crane, Monkey, Mantis, the Furious Five! Shifu shouted. Naruto watched in awe as the Furious Five leaped into the air and landed perfectly. Crane even managed to create a wave of wind that lifted the young children an inch off the ground. Warrior ready! Crane stood on the field while the rest stood off to the side. A giant mechanism was pushed forward and Naruto heard a villager call it the 1,000 tongues of flame. For the next hour, Naruto watched as 4 of the Furious Five performed kung fu that amazed the audience. He, Tuchi, and Ayam had managed to serve a lot of ramen. But Naruto knew he still had some left, so he approached Oogway and Shifu and asked, Master, do any of you want ramen? I'd love to, Oogway said with a smile. Shifu shrugged and accepted a bowl. Why don't you go serve the 5 warriors? I'm sure they're hungry. Naruto nodded with a smile. He approached each of them and each had a bowl, but Tigress refused. She shrugged and stepped aside to take the ramen off her back. Finally! Shifu shouted. Master Tigress! The crowd cheered at this. Naruto was about to start clapping until a sound reached his ear. Looking around, he decided to go see what it was. Master Tigress! Face the iron ox and his death blades! Naruto listened. After a minute of searching, Naruto saw that it was a flame about to light a large firework. With wide eyes, he tried to stomp on it, not noticing that one of his tails was caught in a string tied to the firework. Oogway sensed something and raised his hand. Seeing this, everyone fell silent. I sense the dragon warrior is among us. Shifu nodded and the Furious Five lined up. Citizens of the Valley of Peace, Master Oogway will now choose the dragon warrior. Oogway and Shifu slowly got off and approached the warriors. Back with Naruto, the flame wouldn't go out. By the time he realized it, it was too late as it ignited and flew through the air, with Naruto along with it. Luckily, Naruto pulled his tail out of the rocket before it exploded. Unfortunately, he didn't realize how high up he was until he looked down. He screamed and fell, knocking himself unconscious as he hit the ground. When he opened his eyes, everything was blurry. As it became clearer, the first thing he saw was Mantis and the other Furious Five looking at him in concern. Well, Tigress just looked annoyed and angry. "What happened?" he asked groggily. Looking around, he saw Oogway pointing at him with a shocked smile. Realizing what happened, he quickly stood up, saying, "Sorry! Sorry, how interesting," Oogway commented. "Master, are you pointing at me?" Tigress asked hopefully. He said, pointing at Naruto. "Who?" Naruto asked. Moving, he saw that Oogway was still pointing at him. "You," he said with a smile. "Me?" asked a surprised Naruto. "The universe has brought us the Dragon Warrior!" Oogway shouted as he used his staff to lift Naruto's arm. "That? What?" The Furious Five shouted. "What?" Shifu shouted. "What?" Tucci and Iam shouted. A gong rang and a parade began. Ducks appeared with a carriage and loaded Naruto into it. "Stop! Wait! Who told you dash?" Shifu was ignored as the duck continued to carry him. "Master Oogway!" "Wait!" Shifu shouted. "That fox can't be the answer to our problem. You were about to point the finger at Tigress until that thing fell in front of her." "That was just an accident." Oogway never lost his smile when Shifu said, "There are no accidents." As the duck carried Naruto away, the Furious Five approached Shifu and bowed in shame. "Forgive us, Master, we have failed you." "No," Shifu said, raising his arm. "If the fox hasn't left by morning, then I will have failed you." Chorgam Prison. Zing flew wearily as he approached the prison. He was so tired that he crashed and landed in front of a pair of rhino guards. "Wait! Wait! I have a message!" he shouted as they drew their weapons. "From Master Shifu." "What?" a deep voice shouted. Once Zing told Commander Vatcher what Shifu wanted, the rhinoceros became angry. "Double the guard! Extra precautions! Your prison may not be suitable." Zing laughed nervously. "Do you doubt the safety of my prison?" "Absolutely not," Zing said as seriously as he could. "Shifu does it. I'm just a messenger. I'll give you a message for your master Shifu," he said before walking away with the duck after. "Escape from Chorgam Prison is impossible." Zing looked down and saw that they were on the highest level of the prison. "Impressive, isn't it?" "Aye, it's very impressive," Zing muttered as he trembled in fear. "One entrance, one exit. 1,000 guards. And only one prisoner." "Yes, except the prisoner is Tai Lung." They both entered a mechanism. "Take us down," Vatcher ordered. The mechanism took them down. For fun, Vatcher shook the chains, scaring Zing even more. When they reached the bottom, a door opened. "Behold, Tai Lung, I'm just going to wait here. There's nothing to worry about. It's perfectly safe," Vatcher said as he kicked Zing forward. "Crossbow, ready!" All the crossbows were aimed directly at Tai Lung's. "Crossbow," Zing whispered. "Hey, tough guy, did you hear it?" Vatcher asked, approaching Tai Lung's prone form. His hands had chains that connected to a large rock on the side, and on his back was a lock that stopped Tai Lung's movement. "Oogway's giving someone the dragon scroll, and it won't be you." "What are you doing?" Zing whispered loudly. "Don't make him angry. What are you going to do about it?" "I've got him completely immobilized." To prove he was right, Vatcher stomped on Tai Lung's tail as hard as he could. Tai Lung didn't even budge. Vatcher then walked up to him and said, like a little kid, "Did I step on the kitten's tail?" Taking no chances, Zing said. "I'm fine, I've seen enough. I'll tell Shifu he has nothing to worry about." "No, it doesn't," Vatcher said, happy to have been proven right. "I'll tell him. Can we go now?" One of Zeng's feathers fell in front of Tai Lung, causing him to open his eyes in the darkness. Jade Palace. Naruto was overwhelmed by the amount of cheers for him. The second they entered the Jade Palace, the ducks threw Naruto out of the carriage. "Ow," Naruto said. "I think there was a mistake. Everyone thinks I'm the Dragon Warrior." He sighed before turning around and noticing where he was. "The Hall of Heroes?" He looked around. "This place looks cool," he muttered. He walked over to a sword that had a green Chinese dragon on it. At the bottom of the holder was a plaque that read, The sword of heroes, said to be so sharp you can cut yourself just by looking. Naruto looked up and looked at it before trying to hold it. He only got a few inches away before retracting his hand and wincing in pain. Naruto continued looking around before realizing he wasn't alone. Looking toward the moon pool, he saw Shifu. Master Shifu, he said, bowing. So you're the legendary dragon warrior? He asked rhetorically. Yes, about that. There was a mistake and dash. Of course there was a mistake! Shifu shouted, walking around Naruto. You are not the dragon warrior. You will never be the dragon warrior until you have learned the secret of the dragon scroll, he said, pointing to the top of the room and towards the dragon statue. You must first master the highest level of kung fu, and that is clearly impossible if that is someone like you. Like me? Naruto repeated, not liking what he heard. Yeah, look at you. I've never seen a fox with 9 tails before. He took a step back. Uguay may have chosen you, but when I'm done with you, I promise you're going to wish he hadn't. Are we clear? Yes, Naruto said with a grunt. Good. I can't wait to get started, Shifu said with an evil grin. He then led Naruto to the Furious Five's training room, where they were now training. He watched as Crane flew across the ceiling and landed in an unstable bowl, all the while blocking arrows from different directions. Tigress then turned to him, and they started sparring. Mantis landed next to the bowl and shot through a bunch of spiked training dummies. Viper was dodging fire as she slithered around. Finally, Monkey was swinging on the ceiling and jumped through a hoop that had swords around it. Tigress then entered a spinning mechanism that looked like snakes. She was also dodging several swinging poles that had spikes on them. She suddenly broke one and the wood flew straight towards Naruto. Trusting his instincts, Naruto ducked under a large piece of wood and caught a smaller one, but that would have hit him in the face. Shifu was speechless when he saw this. Well, let's begin, he said, wanting to see Naruto lose and leave the temple. Already? Naruto asked. Yes, now. Unless you think the great Uguay was wrong and you're not the dragon warrior, Shifu said, practically saying, get the hell out of the temple. For the last time. I'm not the dragon dash. Naruto was interrupted when Monkey accidentally landed behind him and pushed him. Naruto moved forward towards the mechanisms of the spinning snake. Despite never having done anything like this before, Naruto showed great balance as his tails kept him upright. The Furious Five landed next to Shifu and were about to help Naruto until their teacher stopped them, saying, This should be good. As Naruto moved forward, his instincts kicked in again, and his tail shot upwards, clicking on one of the clubs. However, the force of the impact still sent Naruto flying towards the large jade-green bowl. He managed to get out of there, but when he did, he went straight into the spiked dummies. He used his tails and arms to block, but some hit him. This will be easier than I thought. After getting out of there, Naruto thought he was safe. That was until he heard a strange sound and looked down. It was then that he realized he was standing in the field of fire. With great luck, he managed to avoid most of the blasts, and only a few hit him. He finished and collapsed while breathing heavily. How did I do it? He asked, panting. It was clear Shifu was angry seeing that Naruto hadn't given up. Later that night, there are no words, Mantis said as he and the others climbed the steps to their bedrooms. There's no denying that, Crane said. What was Master Uguay thinking? Viper asked. The poor guy is going to get himself killed. He's so powerful, Crane said sarcastically. The dragon warrior fell from the sky on a ball of fire. The others, but Tigress, laughed. You'd think Master Uguay would choose someone who actually knew kung fu, Tigress said. Everyone laughed and continued walking, unaware that Naruto was sitting behind a tree. He was sad. Even though he knew he wasn't the dragon warrior, at least he did his best. As they mocked him, memories of his past entered his mind. He almost screamed, so he did the only thing he could think of. Run. He ran through the forest, not knowing where he was going. After a while, he stopped and saw that he was on a hill with a peach tree, far from the temple. It was here that he shouted. He shouted to the heavens but got no response until, I see you have found the sacred peach tree of heavenly wisdom, said a voice from behind him. Turning around, Naruto saw it was Uguay. Master, he greeted before looking at the tree. I thought I found a random peach tree, I understand. You go to isolated places when you're upset. Who said I was upset? Naruto asked as he walked away. Your eyes, said the turtle. I can see how you feel just by looking into your eyes. I saw that you were upset, and I also saw that you have a troubled past. Naruto's eyes widened at this. So why are you upset? Sighing, Naruto sat against the tree. Even though I did my best, I made a fool of myself in front of Master Shifu and the five. Probably, Maguekio commented, and I recently heard the five talking behind my back. They hate me, obviously. I used to have respect for everyone here. But Master Shifu and the others have lost my respect. I know I'm not good at Kung Fu, but you could at least help me instead of criticizing me. Naruto sighed again. Just go. I don't belong here. I have a better chance of making noodles for Ikarakas than learning Kung Fu here. Maguekio smiled sadly. Come out, don't give up. Noodles, not spaghetti. Naruto looked at him. You're too worried about what was and what will be. There's a saying, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is a gift. That's why it's called the present, he said wisely and like a crazy old turtle at the same time. He began to walk away, bumping into the tree as he walked beside it. A peach fell from the tree and landed in Naruto's hand, making the fox smile. He finally returned to the temple. He walked slowly, not caring if he made any noise. Just as he reached the door to his room, the door behind him opened to reveal Tigress. You don't belong here, she said. Her eyes seemed to pierce his through the darkness. You don't belong in the Jade Palace. You are an embarrassment to Kung Fu, and if you have any respect for who we are and what we do, you'll be gone by morning, she said. More memories flashed through his mind, causing Naruto to hold his head in pain. Seeing this Tigress, he was about to ask her if she was okay, but she took a step towards her room. Just as she was about to close the door, he looked her in the eyes and said, I may not belong here and you all may consider me a disgrace, but I still try. I know I'm not the Dragon Warrior, and I know Master Oogway was going to choose you until he landed in front of you. But that doesn't give any of you the right to tell me to stop and leave. As he spoke, Tigress's eyes widened as she saw the determination in her eyes. I will stay. Not to prove anyone right, that I'm an embarrassment, or that I am the Dragon Warrior. I will stay to prove that I am Naruto Uzumaki and that I will never give up. With that, he closed the door, leaving a stunned Tigress. Chorgam Prison. Tai Lung used his tail and grabbed the feather that landed in front of him. Using it, he placed it in a lock on his back. His tail moved the feather in a complex manner. Finally, the lock made a noise and opened on its own, allowing Tai Lung to take a deep breath. He stretched out his claws and let them crunch with a satisfying sound. Parts of the lock shot in different directions. Then it exploded out of him. Vatcher ran to the edge and looked down at Tai Lung, seeing him trying to escape. Oh no! He cried. What's going on? Singh shouted as he ran alongside Vatcher. Tai Lung grunted as he tried to stand. It was difficult with 2 stones tied to his arms, but he managed. Once he stood, he looked directly at Vatcher and roared. Seeing this, Vatcher shouted, Fire crossbows! Fire! Shouted a soldier. Each of them shot a large arrow. But as he stood still, Tai Lung moved out of the way, causing the arrows to crash to the ground around the arrow. This time, Tai Lung moved so that it struck his right fist, effectively destroying it. With his now free hand, he broke the other fist. Tai Lung is free! I must warn Shifu! Singh shouted, but Vatcher grabbed him before he could leave. You're not going anywhere, and neither is he! Vatcher shouted. Turn it up! He yelled, referring to the mechanism. Wait! A soldier shouted. Bring him back! He shouted as he was pulled up. Tai Lung growled but turned to see another arrow being shot at him. It came close, but he deflected it and fired it into a wall. He did the same with the 4 arrows on the ground. He broke his neck before jumping over the last arrow and catapulting himself to the next. It's coming this way! Singh shouted, still held up. He won't get far. Archers! Vatcher shouted. Hundreds of regular arrows were shot towards Tai Lung. Seeing them coming, he quickly jumped towards the still-moving mechanism. He managed to catch the bottom and used it to stop the arrows hitting him. The rhino at the top quickly cut the chain, sending the mechanism tumbling down. Just as they were about to celebrate, Tai Lung appeared and knocked them down with a split kick. He grabbed the chain and jumped over the side. The momentum spun him around and launched him to the next level. Without any difficulty, he overcame all the rhino soldiers and made it to the next level. Doing the same, he managed to reach the top where the rest of the soldiers, Vatcher, and Zin were waiting for him. "We're dead. Very, very dead," Zin said. Vatcher laughed. "Not yet, they weren't." He looked at a certain archer. "Now!" He shot a flaming arrow towards the ceiling. Tai Lung watched, and his eyes widened as he saw it hit explosives. Large chunks of rock fell and crashed onto the stone bridge. Without hesitation, Tai Lung began to run. However, he wasn't fast enough and began to fall with the stone bridge. Thinking he won, Vatcher laughed. Tai Lung looked up and saw one last piece of explosive about to go off. So he started jumping and running for other pieces. Then he jumped and landed on a rock. He climbed onto the explosives and cut it. "Can we run now?" Zin asked. "Yes," Vatcher said, sounding like he was about to cry. Tai Lung turned around and threw the explosives. It exploded, forcing everyone out into the cold snow. As he stepped out, he first grabbed Zing and took a chilling breath. "I'm glad Shifu sent you," he said, stroking the bird. Zin nodded in fear before being thrown into the air and flying away. Jade Palace. A gong rang early in the morning. The second it went off, the Furious Five burst out of their rooms and said, "Good morning, Master," to Shifu. However, they all noticed that Naruto still hadn't left his room. "Fox!" Shifu shouted. He walked to his room and threw open the doors. "Wake up!" but was surprised to find no one there. Shifu chuckled. "He's gone," he said. The others didn't seem to care, but Tigress looked down, remembering his words from last night. "If you or the others have something to say it to my face instead of behind my back." Then she thought, he knew what we were saying and left? I thought he was going to stay, to prove who he was. They all walked towards the training yard. "What do we do now, with the fox gone?" Viper asked worriedly. "Who will be the dragon warrior?" Shifu never lost his smile. "All we can do is resume our training and trust that in time, the true dragon warrior will be revealed." He opened the door only to see Naruto panting as he leaned against a tree. "What are you doing here?" Shifu yelled. The others widened their eyes at the sight of the fox. Naruto didn't seem surprised when he heard Shifu shout. "Good morning, Master," he greeted. "I was just training." "What?" Tigress asked before Shifu could say anything. Naruto smiled before saying, "A full split. Did you really think you could learn to do a full split in one night?" Shifu questioned. "It takes years to develop one's flexibility," he said, tossing a discus high into the air. Tigress stepped forward and ducked, still smiling. "And years more to apply it in combat." He snapped his fingers, and Tigress jumped, following the discus. Once she was level, she performed a split without difficulty and destroyed the discus. As she landed, she gave Naruto a challenging smile. Pieces of the discus fell to the ground. As Naruto looked at Tigress, with her watching, he caught a piece of the discus without taking his eyes off her. Both of their smiles seemed to grow a little in amusement. "Put that down!" Shifu shouted. "The only memory!" She snapped her fingers and everyone entered a ring, with only Viper and Naruto in the middle. "Are you ready?" she asked. "Let's go," Naruto said, getting into position. However, Viper simply pulled his feet out from under him, flipping him forward, and slamming him into the ground. "Sorry, bro. I thought you said you were ready." Viper apologized. "Again," was all Naruto said. Shifu gritted his teeth as he snapped his fingers again. This time it was a monkey, and he was using a staff. Naruto also took a staff and blocked some of Monkey's attacks, but again he was knocked back. However, Monkey was surprised because not many had blocked more than one attack on their first try. "Again," said Naruto, making Shifu even angrier. Now he was standing in front of Crane, in the large jade-green bowl. Naruto jumped towards Crane and nearly grabbed his beak, until Crane flew backward, causing Naruto to land in the bowl. "Again," he said. Now he was up against Mantis. Naruto managed to dodge a couple of mantis attacks but also fell, painfully, again. This continued for the rest of the day, and every time Naruto kept saying, again, Shifu chuckled when he saw Naruto fall but frowned when he heard him say, again. Tigress took a step forward, seeing that she never got to train with Naruto, but Shifu stopped her. "I've been taking it easy, Fox. But no more," he said, taking a step forward. "Your next opponent will be me," Naruto gasped as he stood up. "Bring it." The furious five looked at each other nervously, except for Tigress. "Step forward," Shifu ordered. Naruto did so, but Shifu grabbed him and began to spin him around. "The true path to victory is to find your opponent's weakness and make them suffer for it," he said, striking Naruto and bending his hand at an unnatural angle. "You're wrong," Naruto said through the pain, "to take his strength and use it against him." Shifu continued as if he didn't hear Naruto. He kept throwing Naruto around like he was a mere toy. "Until he finally falls or gives up." Shifu was now standing on Naruto's back and was grabbing the fox's fur. "I won't give up! No matter what!" Naruto shouted. Shifu growled before throwing Naruto into the air and kicking him out of the training yard and down a large hill. "If he's smart, then he won't be climbing those steps again," Shifu said before walking back inside. "But he will," said Monkey. "You're not going to quit, are you?" Viper asked. "No, he won't. He told me that no matter what happens, he's going to prove who he is," Tigress said before jumping after Naruto. "Should we keep going?" Viper asked. "No, it'll be fine," Mantis said. Tigress finally caught up to Naruto on the steps. He was breathing heavily and badly bruised all over. She couldn't help but grimace at the sight. Still, she helped him to his feet and slowly climbed the steps. "What are you doing?" Naruto asked. "Just shut up and walk," Tigress said. Eventually, they had to stop because of the number of steps, because Tigress couldn't walk up the steps with Naruto on her shoulders. They sat there watching the sunset in silence until Tigress asked, "Why are you doing this?" "Do what?" Naruto asked. "Keep training," she said, turning to look at him. "Why don't you just leave?" Naruto smiled. "I already told you, to prove that I am neither a disgrace nor the Dragon Warrior, but I am simply Naruto Uzumaki and nothing more. I still don't understand." Finally, a man and his daughter found me and took me in. Ever since then I've been making ramen, and now I'm here trying to learn Kung Fu. Tigress was shocked by what Naruto had said. Their lives were similar, and she always thought that no one would be the same as her. "The reason I'm not leaving is because if I give up then it would prove to the villagers that they were right, and that I can't do anything. I just can't do that. So when I told you to leave," he trailed off, "it made me remember what everyone said. I was actually planning on leaving until Uguay spoke to me and then you. So if anything I should thank you," he said with a smile. Even after everything, he's saying thanks, she thought. I'm sorry for everything that happened," he said, clearly not one to apologize. Naruto chuckled and gestured for both of them to return to the temple. That night, Naruto squirmed and winced as Mantis used acupuncture to help with his injuries. "I thought you said acupuncture would make me feel better," Naruto said. "Trust me, he will," Mantis said as she stabbed Naruto again. Tigress sat against the wall with an amused smile and Viper was sitting across from Naruto, holding a picture of an animal. "It's not easy finding the right nerve points under all that fur." Mantis stabbed him again, making Naruto yell. "Maybe you should look at this again," Viper said, holding up the photo. "Oh. Okay," Mantis said, realizing where to go next. "I know Master Shifu is trying to inspire me and all, but if I didn't know any better, I'd say he was trying to get rid of me." Mantis and Viper looked at each other before looking at Naruto and smiled nervously. Tigress chuckled. "Okay, Naruto already knows what Master Shifu is doing. You do it?" asked a surprised Viper. "Yeah, I figured as much when he yelled at me that I'm not the Dragon Warrior," Naruto explained. "I know it may seem a little heartless, but it wasn't always like this," Mantis said. "According to legend, there was a time when Master Shifu used to smile," Viper said. "Nope. I can't see it," Naruto said before being stabbed again. "But that was before dash." Viper was interrupted by Tigress. "Tai Lung," he said, frowning. Through his wall, Crane said. "Yeah, we're not supposed to talk about him," Well, if she's going to stay here, she should know, Tigress said. Who's Tai Lung? Naruto asked before shouting. Would you mind stopping for a minute? He asked Mantis, who had just jumped off him. Tai Lung was one of Master Shifu's students. They called him a prodigy, a genius. He had even mastered the 1,000 scrolls of Kung Fu, Tigress said. But to Master Shifu, he was more than just a student, he was his son. Naruto's eyes widened at this. Shifu found him as a cub and raised him as his son. And when the boy showed talent for Kung Fu, Shifu trained him, believed in him, told him he was destined for greatness. It was never enough for Tai Lung, he said, frowning. He wanted the Dragon Scroll, but Oogway saw the darkness in his heart and refused. What happened next? Naruto asked. He was outraged. He rampaged through the valley. He tried to take the scroll by force. And Shifu had to destroy what he had created. But how could he? Shifu loved Tai Lung like he's never loved anyone before. She continued with memories of her trying out Kung Fu. Or since. And now he has the chance to make things right. To train the true dragon warrior, she said, looking into his eyes. Unfortunately, you treat things like a joke, she said with a smirk. Naruto was about to say something before his face froze in an amused manner. Oh, that's it, Tigress yelled, holding out her claws. Wait, Mantis yelled, landing on Naruto's shoulder. My fault! I accidentally pinched your facial nerve! Naruto fell forward to reveal hundreds of needles embedded in him. And I may have stopped your heart too. Training room. Master sat in the darkness, with only a candle beside him. He meditated and chanted. Inner peace, inner peace. His ear twitched, but he thought nothing of it. Inner peace, inner. His ear twitched again and he called out. Whoever's making that flapping sound, will they quiet down? He stopped and heard nothing, so he went back to chanting. Inner dash dot. But he was interrupted when a duck collided and landed behind him. He turned around and smiled at the sight of the familiar duck. Oh, Zeng. Excellent. I could use some good news right now, he said, making Zeng freeze. Peachtree Hill. Master, master! Shifu shouted as he charged up the stairs. Oogway was standing by the tree, assuming a kung fu stance until he was interrupted. I have very bad news, Shifu. There is only news, nothing good or bad, said the turtle. Master, your vision! Your vision was correct. Tai Lung has escaped from prison. He's on his way. That made Oogway stop. That's bad news if you don't believe the dragon warrior can't stop him. Shifu's eye twitched. The fox? Master, that fox isn't the dragon warrior. It wasn't even meant to be here. It was an accident. There are no accidents, said Oogway. Shifu sighed. Yeah, I know. You already said that. Twice, Oogway chuckled. Well, that wasn't an accident either. 3 times, Shifu muttered. My old friend, the fox will never fulfill his destiny, nor you yours, until you let go of the illusion of control, Oogway advised. Mirage? Shifu repeated. Yes. Look at this tree, Shifu, he said, pointing to the tree next to them. I can't make it bloom when it suits me, nor can I make it bear fruit before its time. Yes, but there are things we can control, Shifu said before kicking the tree, causing several peaches to fall. I can control. He grabbed a fallen peach, tossed it into the air, and jumped after it. He then cut it in half with a slash and landed. Where to plant the seed? He finished before making a hole in the ground. He quickly grabbed the peach seed and threw it into the hole. That's not an illusion, master. Yes, said Oogway, walking forward. But no matter what you do, that seed will grow into a peach tree. You may wish for an apple or an orange, but you'll get a peach. But a peach can't defeat Tai Lung, Shifu shouted. Perhaps I can. Oogway leaned forward and buried the hole containing the seed. If you are willing to guide it, to nurture it, to believe in it. But how? How? Shifu asked, almost desperately. I need your help, master. No, you just need to believe. Promise me, Shifu. Promise me you'll believe. I'll try, Shifu said. Suddenly, the sakura petals began to gather together. Good, said Oogway, with a smile. My time has come. Shifu's eyes widened. You must continue this journey without me, he said, giving Shifu his staff. What are you? Wait! Oogway walked to the edge of the hill. Master! You can't leave me! Oogway turned around and bowed to Shifu, with a smile. You must believe, Master! Oogway suddenly began to turn into sakura petals and followed the wind with Shifu looking on sadly. Temple roof. Tigress sat on the roof and looked up at the moon. Hearing a noise, she turned around and saw Naruto. Hey! He greeted. She just nodded and turned back to look at the moon, with Naruto joining her after a minute. Why did you tell me about your past? She asked. Smiling, he shrugged. To be honest, I don't know. She turned to look at him. I don't know why I told you. I just had this nagging feeling in the back of my head screaming at me to tell you. He looked at her. You didn't have an easy life either, did you? I managed to play dominoes without doing anything wrong. I even showed them to everyone at the orphanage, and they all became my friends because they overcame their fears. But the parents didn't, so I was never adopted. Master Shifu took me in after a while, and now here we are. We had similar lives, Naruto commented. They fell silent for a while before Naruto stood up and stretched. Let's go. What? Tigress asked, confused. Naruto took her hand and pulled her to her feet. Let's go. He began pulling her across the roof. Where are you taking me? He almost demanded. In response, Naruto jumped off the side of the roof with Tigress beside him. When they landed, Tigress looked around and saw they were in a sparring ring. Let's spar, Naruto said, jumping back into position. It took Tigress a moment to realize what he said. Smiling, she assumed her famous Tigress fighting style and waited. After a few minutes of just staring at each other, they both ran at the same time. They traded blows, Naruto taking them instead of giving them. This went on for over an hour, and neither of them lost their smiles. Eventually, they had to stop because they were both out of breath. Are you okay? She asked, knowing she'd taken a lot of hits. I'll be fine, I'm a fast healer, he replied. What about you? She asked, seeing that he had caught her a couple of times, even though it was by pure luck. I'll be fine, she replied. You're getting better, thanks, he said. They walked over to a bench and sat down. Are you feeling better? She gave him a confused look. When you told me about your past, I realized it was making you more depressed. So I trained with you to make you feel better. Oh, thanks? She said, confused. No problem. The second he said that, they heard the sound of running footsteps. Turning around, they saw Crane, Monkey, Viper, Mantis, and Shifu running towards them. There you are! Shifu shouted. Master? Said Tigress. What have you two been doing? He yelled. We were sparring, Naruto said with a raised eyebrow. You don't have time for that, he shouted. Tai Lung has escaped from prison and is coming for the Dragon Scroll. What? Both Naruto and Tigress yelled. You're the only one who can stop him. Is he really free? And you expect me to stop him? Naruto shouted before pointing to himself. What about Master Oogway? He did it before so he could do it again. Oogway can't. Shifu shouted before lowering his head. Not anymore, he said softly. It was then that everyone noticed Shifu holding Oogway's staff. Their eyes widened at this before they all lowered their heads. Our only hope is the Dragon Warrior. But what about us? Tigress asked. Let's stop Tai Lung. This is what you trained us for. No! This is not your destiny to defeat Tai Lung, but his! He shouted, pointing at Naruto, who was no longer there. Where did he go? Naruto ran towards a set of steps, but his path was blocked when Shifu landed in front of him. You can't leave! A true warrior never gives up. Who said I was giving up? Naruto asked. I was going to fight Tai Lung now to stop him, he said, running next to Shifu. Without moving from his spot, Shifu used the staff and brought Naruto back. If you leave now, you'll just die. So what? Naruto shouted. If it's my destiny, I'll win. You may be the Dragon Warrior, but you can't defeat him now. But I'm not the Dragon Warrior. Tigress is, he shouted, making Shifu freeze. You and I both know that Oogway was going to choose her. Besides, you never believed I was the Dragon Warrior. Yes, I never believed you were the Dragon Warrior. But now I ask you to trust your master as I have come to trust mine. You're not my master! Naruto shouted, pulling the staff away from him. And I'm not the dragon warrior. Then why didn't you quit? You knew I wanted you to leave, but you stayed. Yes, I stayed, but not for you, he said before looking towards the temple. He immediately saw Tigress watching them from a distance, and could tell she could hear them. I stayed to prove that I'm not the dragon warrior, but simply Naruto. But I can change you. I can turn you into the dragon warrior. And I will! Shifu shouted desperately. Naruto glared at Shifu, and made the teacher take a step back. You can't! Tai Lung is on his way here right now. You don't have time to train me and you know it. So how are you going to make me into the dragon warrior? Shifu stared as he tried to think of an answer. How? Naruto asked. How? Shifu remained silent and Naruto yelled. How? I don't know! Shifu finally cried out. He realized what he said and sighed. I don't know. I thought so, Naruto said softly. He walked and Shifu didn't stop him this time. Naruto took a step past Shifu before stopping, so their backs were to each other. He looked back at Tigress and could tell she was sad. Train Tigress, she's the true dragon warrior and God knows she deserves it, he said, taking another step. Goodbye. And Naruto walked out of the temple. Naruto kept walking and only managed to reach the center of the village before Tigress stepped out of the shadows. Where are you going? She asked, already knowing the answer. You know it. I'm going to fight Tai Lung, he said seriously, but you know you'll lose, so? I have nothing left in this world except Ikaraku's, he said before seeing Tigress looking hurt. What about us? The five? She asked. Naruto's eyes widened at this. Don't leave this village. You still have a chance if you can give Shifu a chance. Naruto remained silent before taking a step forward. Seeing this Tigress standing in his way. Please move, Tigress. No, she said. I don't want to fight with you, he said. You don't have to, he said before Naruto fell to his knees. His vision blurred. I'm sorry, he heard Tigress say before falling unconscious. She quickly grabbed him and hugged him. She then pulled a dart from the back of her neck and looked over, seeing the rest of the five appear. Mantis was also holding a blowgun, showing that he was the one who fired the dart. Without a word, Tigress motioned for the other to stand on her head. They did so and she sighed, before turning towards a restaurant, Ikaraku's. She dragged Naruto towards it before knocking on the door. After a minute, I answered. Hello? She said sleepily. Her eyes finally focused and she gasped at the sight of an unconscious Naruto. Naruto, he's fine, he's just unconscious. Could you show me his room so I can put him to bed? Yeah sure, Master Tigress. I said nervously. Thank you, Tigress said before following the cat inside. She entered Naruto's room and frowned at the sight of her so naked. She laid him down on his bed and looked at him. I'm sorry it had to come to this, but it had to be done. Thank you for everything, she said smiling before leaving the room. As she left the room, she turned to Iam. Can you tell him I'm sorry and that I hope he makes the right decision? Sure, Iam said with a smile. You like it, don't you? Excuse me? It doesn't matter. I'll tell Naruto you apologized. Thank you. Goodbye, Tigress said before leaving. However, her mind was focused on what Iam had asked of her. The next morning, Naruto woke up and instantly realized where he was. His room at Ikaraku's. It took him a moment to remember the events of last night. Frowning, he stood up and looked at himself in the mirror. I'm sorry, he heard Tigress's voice in his head. He sighed before opening the door and walking down the stairs. When he entered the room, he saw Iam walking towards him. How did I get here? He asked. Master Tigress dragged you here. She wanted me to tell you she's sorry and that she hopes you make the right decision, he replied. I see, he said quietly. They were silent for a moment. She seemed very worried and sad about you, Iam said. May I ask what happened? Sighing, Naruto said. Let's just say trouble is brewing. And if I had to guess, then Tigress and the other five went to face that threat. I was planning on going, but that turned into me arguing with Master Shifu and hurting Tigress, he said, remembering seeing the pain in her eyes. He turned and looked out the window and glared at the temple. Guess I was right. About? Tucci asked as he entered the room, listening to the conversation. Apparently, only the dragon warrior can defeat Tai Mean Threat, he said, trying not to scare them, because of Tai Lung. I tried to go now, because of my nerve, but I'm not fully trained. It's only now that Shifu wanted to train me properly. You'd better go now, Tucci said. Probably. I'll be back soon, and I'll even try to bring the 5 along too, Naruto said before leaving. He sighed before heading to the temple, Peachtree Hill. Shifu sighed as he sat on the hill. He felt sad because he felt he had failed Uguay. Then he heard a noise, which piqued his curiosity, so he entered the temple to find out what it was. After a few minutes, he opened the doors to the training hall, believing this place contained the noisemaker. But he found it strangely empty. He looked around and could only see the training dummy. He heard the noise again and turned towards the dorms. After a few more minutes, he entered the building and followed the noise until he found himself next to the kitchen. It sounded like someone was fighting inside, so he looked, only to see Naruto breaking open a cupboard and taking out a box of cookies. He sighed before putting it back and looking towards the door. He froze at the sight of the red panda. What? What are you doing here? Shifu asked as he looked at the destruction. Making ramen. I do this when I'm bored, he replied. But I can't find the damn fish cakes. Oh, never mind then, Shifu said, turning around and walking away. He walked past the door before looking back at Naruto. I thought you were someone else. The fish cakes are on the top shelf, he said, walking away. However, what Naruto didn't know was that Shifu hid against the wall. Opening his eyes, Naruto ran over to the shelf. All Shifu could hear was a smash and Naruto jumping. He quickly ran into the room and opened his eyes in surprise. Naruto was doing splits on a shelf and grunting as he ran down the shelf. He turned and looked at Shifu. You lied to me, he accused. Look at you, Shifu said as he took a step forward. Yeah, I know, I'm bothering you, Naruto said as he was about to get off. No! I mean, how did you get there? He asked. I don't know, did I jump? However, you are 10 feet off the ground, Shifu said. And you have made a perfect split. I told you I practice, Naruto said. But I didn't train on how to get down to the ground when you're high in the air and doing splits, besides dash, he said before falling and crashing to the ground. It was probably just an accident, he grunted. A cookie rolled across the floor and landed in front of Shifu. He chuckled before picking it up and pointing it at Naruto. There are no accidents, he quoted Uguay. Come with me, he said. An hour later, both Naruto and Shifu walked along a path that led to a mountain. Neither of them was tired, but Naruto's feet and back were aching as he carried a large, heavy backpack. Can you tell me where we're going? Naruto asked. Shifu didn't reply, but eventually they arrived at a foggy area. Shifu sat and meditated by a lake and Naruto sat down, putting his feet in said lake. What is this place? Naruto asked as he looked around. Fox, we don't wash our feet in the pool of sacred tears, Shifu said with his eyes closed. Pool of sacred tears? Naruto repeated, pulling his feet out of the water. Yes, said Shifu walking forward. This is where Uguay unraveled the mysteries of harmony and focus. This is the birthplace of Kung Fu, he said, making Naruto's eyes widen. Shifu leaped into the air and landed on a large chunk of rock, taking a stance that commanded respect. Do you want to learn Kung Fu? Yes, Naruto said in amazement. Then I am your teacher, he shouted. Yes, sir, Naruto shouted as he bowed. Shifu smiled and said, Don't bow down, it's not good for you. Naruto chuckled before bowing again. Yes, master, he said with the two laughing. After a while they entered a field and Naruto stood in front of Shifu, his fist at his side. When you focus on Kung Fu, when you focus you suck. Naruto's smile disappeared from his face. But maybe that's my fault, I can't train you like I have trained the 5. Now I see the way to get to you is with this, he said, showing a bowl of ramen. This is made straight from Ikaraku's. Naruto was drooling at the sight of those heavenly noodles. Ichiraku noodles, she whispered. Her stomach growled. I'm hungry. Good, Shifu said, chuckling. When you've been trained, you can eat, he said while eating some ramen. Let's begin, he said with Naruto looking at him. They began training with Naruto doing sit-ups on a high branch with Shifu in his lap holding the bowl of ramen. The branch creaked before partially slowing down. Shifu quickly jumped back and landed on some rocks. Naruto quickly grabbed the branch and caught the bowl, using it to catch the falling ramen. The branch broke, and Naruto with it. Shifu quickly caught the bowl and ramen, before drinking some of its broth. Near a bamboo forest, Shifu gave Naruto a bowl of ramen with chopsticks and ran away. Naruto licked his lips before throwing away the chopsticks and trying to drink from the bowl. However, Shifu appeared with his bamboo staff and hit Naruto every second. Naruto managed to block a few attacks, but Shifu then smashed the bowl out of his hands, causing the fox to frown. They were then in a field with Shifu on a rock, holding a fish cake. Naruto moved around the rock trying to grab the fish cake, but Shifu kept moving out of the way. This went on for over an hour, and neither of them gave up. During the night, Naruto tried to eat the ramen Shifu placed in front of him while doing push-ups on hot coals. Shifu couldn't help but laugh in amusement when he saw this. At dawn, they were both on top of a mountain. Shifu stood on one leg, moving in place with fluid movements. Naruto was doing the same while balancing 13 bowls of ramen. One on each limb, one on his head, and one on each of his tails. In the middle of the forest, Naruto rolled past a rock while carrying an empty bowl. Right in front of him was a black pot, filled with ramen, and he was to fill the bowl. Just as he was about to fill the bowl, Shifu appeared behind him, holding his staff. Just as Naruto approached the pot, Shifu slapped his butt, and Naruto had to block all of Shifu's attacks. Naruto managed to fill his bowl, but Shifu punched him in the stomach, and the bowl flew through the air. He jumped, caught the bowl with the ramen, and landed on his staff. Shifu drank from the bowl just as Naruto kicked the bottom of the staff. Without looking, Shifu jumped, and the staff crashed into Naruto's head before Shifu landed back on the staff. On top of a rock was Naruto, with Shifu on the opposite rock, fireflies flashing around them. They both went through a kung fu stance, with Naruto mimicking Shifu perfectly. They then both pushed up with one finger and switched arms as they went up. Shifu attacked Naruto in the bamboo forest, and Naruto dodged, blocked, and deflected every attack. To make things interesting, Naruto easily jumped over Shifu while they both thought. At sunset, Naruto stood on a mountain and went through a very complex kung fu stance, making it look like the easiest thing in the world. And he did it with a smile. Now they both sat opposite each other, at a stone table, with a bowl of ramen on top. Shifu picked up his chopsticks and pointed at the ramen. "After you, Fox. Like this?" Naruto asked suspiciously. "No sit-ups? No 10-mile walks? I promised to train you, and you've been trained. You're free to eat," he said, gesturing again to the ramen. Naruto rubbed his chin suspiciously but shrugged. He grabbed a pair of chopsticks and snapped them. "Enjoy," Shifu said with a smile. Naruto took the ramen, grabbed some noodles, and tried to eat them. Tried being the key word because Shifu, using his incredible speed, ate the noodles. "Hey!" Naruto shouted. "I said you're free to eat. Do you have any noodles?" Shifu said with a smile. Naruto's eyes narrowed before he tried again. He grabbed a fish cake, only for Shifu to kick it away and eat it. They both narrowed their eyes at each other. "You're free to eat," Shifu repeated. "Am I?" Naruto yelled. "Is that you?" Shifu yelled before expertly flipping his chopsticks. Naruto just made an odd sound before bringing his chopsticks together, seeing how he couldn't do what Shifu did. He smirked as he slammed his hand down on the bowl, spilling its contents into the air. Shifu jumped into the air and slurped up the noodles and broth along with everything else, except for a single fish cake. Seeing this, Naruto jumped towards him and made it look like he grabbed it with his chopsticks but only aimed to eat it. Shifu saw this and grabbed the fish cake before Naruto could eat it, then landed next to the bowls. Naruto simply landed on his head, next to the stone table. Naruto jumped to his feet and quickly used his chopsticks to make Shifu drop the fish cake into a bowl. They both used their chopsticks to attack each other as they tried to grab the cake. Shifu flipped the bull over and then flipped the others over. He then began moving the bulls at an incredible speed, and Naruto managed to follow him with his eyes. Naruto quickly stopped Shifu and turned the bowl containing the fish cake over while giving a victorious smile. They struggled with chopsticks again, and Naruto managed to grab the small cake. However, Shifu kept whipping Naruto's fingers with his own. Having had enough of the bowl, Naruto swept the table and kicked the fish cake into the air. Seeing this, Shifu threw his chopstick and stabbed the fish cake into a tree branch. They both ran towards it, and Shifu jumped on Naruto's shoulder, and then jumped for the cake. Naruto used his chopsticks and grabbed Shifu's leg, bringing him back to the ground. They both looked, and saw the fish cake beginning to slide off the lone chopstick. Shifu kicked Naruto's chopsticks away and quickly grabbed his arm, pulling him to the ground. Naruto, however, landed on his feet and they both fought each other. Shifu then pushed Naruto away and looked to see the fish cake fall. Naruto stood up and took Shifu by surprise, as he shoved the red fox. It rushed forward and attempted to eat the fish cake. Unfortunately, Shifu closed Naruto's mouth, and the fish cake rolled off his head and onto Shifu's arm. Naruto punched his arm and the cake flew up, but Shifu jumped and kicked him away. Naruto ran after him and Shifu stood for a moment, grinning. He threw down his chopsticks and ran after the fox, grabbing his staff. He jumped into the air and knocked the fish cake away from Naruto's mouth and tried to hit the fox. Naruto blocked the attack and retaliated. They both kept knocking the fish cake away from each other, as they fought expertly. Naruto turned around, kicked the fish cake into the air, and blocked Shifu's attack. They turned around and Naruto stood on Shifu's staff. Suddenly, he jumped into the air and flipped backward, much to Shifu's amazement. He landed on the ground and caught the fish cake with his chopsticks, which he never dropped. He looked back at Shifu, and the old master bowed, allowing Naruto to eat the fish cake. Smiling, Naruto tossed the fish cake into Shifu's hand, surprising him. Seeing the questioning look, Naruto said, "I'm not hungry." Shifu smirked before tossing the fish cake away. "Master," Naruto said as he bowed respectfully, with the furious five. The five came to a bridge and stopped. On the other side stood Tai Lung, and he growled at the sight of the five. He roared and then ran on all fours across the bridge. Seeing this, Tigress shouted, "Cut!" and the other cut the rope of the bridge. It began to fall and Tai Lung jumped. Seeing that he was going to make it, Tigress jumped and kicked him back to push him away from the edge. Quickly, the rest of the five grabbed the ropes to stabilize the bridge as Tigress and Tai Lung landed on it. He moved and the bridge turned sideways as he spoke. "Where is the dragon warrior? How do you know you're not looking at her?" he asked without taking his eyes off them. Laughing, he replied, "Do you think I'm a fool?" He dropped his smile. "I know you're not the dragon warrior. None of you. I heard how he fell from the sky in a ball of fire, that he is a warrior unlike anything the world has ever seen." As he spoke, he took a step closer to Tigress, causing her to growl. Monkey looked confused. "Naruto?" he asked. "So that's his name." "Naruto," Tai Lung repeated. "Finally, a worthy opponent. Our battle will be legendary," he shouted before Tigress attacked. "You won't touch him," she yelled angrily. They fought, every attack being blocked or dodged. A few hits got through, but Tigress didn't get many in. She then jumped up, grabbed his head with her feet, and threw him off the bridge. She then grabbed the rope and swung the bridge around, making the other five hold on even tighter. Tigress had to grab onto the planks to stay secure. Tai Lung jumped high in the air and punched Tigress. She saw this and flipped the bridge over again, knocking him off a plank. This didn't slow him down or stop him as they continued their fight, with him on top of the bridge and her below. He grabbed her foot and swung her around, through some planks, and let her go. She quickly used her claws and grabbed onto his hand, making him roar in pain. They continued their fight and Monkey grabbed the rope from Crane and Viper. "We've got this! Go help her!" he yelled. That's when Tai Lung kicked Tigress between the planks and then kicked her, so hard that she went flying through many of the planks. Just as she was about to fall, Tai Lung spun the bridge around again and caused the ropes to wrap around her neck, making it hard for her to breathe. Viper slid in front of Tai Lung and whipped him across the face. This caused him to release the ropes and caused Tigress to fall. Crane quickly caught her and made sure she was okay. Viper managed to wrap herself around Tai Lung's neck and hand, and used this to make him kick himself. She was about to fall and Viper tried to escape, but she quickly grabbed her by the neck. "Monkey!" She strangled him. "Let's go!" Mantis shouted, grabbing the last rope. However, due to its size, she struggled and said, "What was I thinking?" Monkey ran as fast as he could and kicked Tai Lung away from Viper and to the other side of the bridge. He quickly got up and ran through the ropes and was clearly angry. Seeing a plan, Tigress yelled, "Mantis!" He got the message and lashed out at the ropes, causing a large wave to appear. Monkey and Viper jumped away, but Tai Lung wasn't so lucky as he was smacked in the face. "Now!" Tigress yelled and everyone ran, except for Mantis. Monkey leaped forward and kicked Tai Lung in the face. Viper then jumped off Monkey's shoulder and tossed Tai Lung into the air. Crane used his beak to cut the rope and used it to tie Tai Lung up. To finish it off, Tigress used all her strength and opened her palm to Tai Lung, forcing him to the other side as he roared in rage. Mantis quickly brought the five back and released the bridge. Everyone sighed in relief and relaxed. However, a sound caught Tigress's attention. Looking over, she gasped, "No," as she saw the bridge rope begin to spin around the mountain. Everyone watched with bated breath as the rope flew upwards. But there was nothing there. Everyone sighed in relief again, but Tigress's eyes widened. Before she could do anything, Tai Lung landed behind them all. "Shifu, he taught you well," Tai Lung commented calmly. Just by looking at him, you could tell he wasn't even out of breath. Then he suddenly rushed forward and punched Monkey in the chest, causing a blue pulse to appear and paralyze him. "But didn't he teach you everything?" he said before rushing towards them all. "Jade Palace. You've done well, Fox," Shifu commented as he and Naruto entered the temple grounds. "Thank you, Master," she replied. She smiled as she used her tails to push Shifu and make him stumble. "The mark of a true warrior is humility, but you've definitely done well," he said, punching Naruto in the side. They both laughed until they heard the flapping of wings. They frowned and turned, their eyes widening as they saw Crane fly weakly, holding the rest of the five. He crashed, dropping the others to the ground. "No!" Naruto shouted, going to check if they were okay. "Are they dead?" "No, they're breathing," he said gratefully. "We were no match for his nervous breakdown." Crane shouted, "He's gotten stronger," Shifu said as he hit a few points on Mantis, allowing him to move again. "Stronger?" Naruto repeated as Shifu hit a few points on Monkey. Unfortunately, Monkey threw a sudden punch and caught Naruto in the chin. "I'm sorry, Naruto," he apologized, but Naruto didn't listen and looked at Tigress. She walked past Shifu as he moved Viper. She knelt and said nothing. Shifu walked over and hit her a few times. She gasped and said weakly, "I thought we could stop him. He could have killed you," Naruto said as he helped her to her feet. "Why didn't he do it?" Mantis asked. "So you can come back and strike fear into our hearts." "But it won't work," Shifu said. "No, he won't," Naruto said as Tigress leaned against him. "You can defeat him, Fox," Shifu shouted. "But how am I going to do it if they couldn't?" he asked. "You will have the one thing no one else has," Shifu said. "What?" Naruto asked. Everyone walked silently towards the Hall of Heroes and stopped in front of the moon pool. "The Dragon Scroll?" he asked as everyone looked at the scroll on the ceiling. "Do you really think I'm ready?" "You are, Naruto," Shifu said with a smile. He then walked over to Ogue's staff, picked it up, and walked to the edge of the moon pool. He was silent for a moment, out of respect. Suddenly, he spun the staff, causing the sakura petals in the pool to float. He began twirling the staff and making the petals float higher and higher. Then, a single petal touched the capsule containing the scroll and managed to make it fall. When it was close enough, Shifu thrust Ogue's staff forward and grabbed the scroll. It only touched the pool, making a single ripple. He turned around and presented it to Naruto. "Look, the Dragon Scroll. It's yours. What happens when I read it?" Naruto asked as he took the scroll. "Legend says you'll be able to hear the beating of a butterfly's wings," Really? Yes, and you will see the light in the deepest caves. You will feel the universe moving around you. Whoa, Naruto said with wide eyes. Read it, Naruto, and fulfill your destiny. Read it and become the dragon warrior. Nodding, Naruto looked at the capsule and took in its details. It was a red tube with a golden dragon design on it, and it also had green ends. He took a deep breath and opened it. He paused for a moment before taking out the scroll. It had a similar design to the capsule. Everyone held their breath when Naruto opened it, and they could see his eyes widen. I don't think so, he whispered. What? Asked Shifu. It's blank, he replied, showing the parchment. No! Shifu shouted, turning around. I'm forbidden to look. He stopped, then snatched the scroll from Naruto. He looked at it from every angle, but it didn't change. It only showed a golden leaf that had a hazy reflection. Blank? No, I don't understand, he whispered to himself. Maguekio was wiser than all of us, but this is nonsense. He chose me by accident, Naruto said out loud. You said only the dragon warrior can read and use the scroll, but I can't. He sighed. But who will stop Tai Lung? Viper asked. He will destroy everything and everyone, Crane said. No, Shifu said as he handed the scroll back to Naruto. Evacuate the valley. You must protect the villagers from Tai Lung's wrath, he ordered. What about you, Master? Tigress asked with concern in her eyes. I will fight him. What? Naruto asked with wide eyes. I'll hold him off long enough for everyone to escape. But Shifu, he'll kill you, Naruto said. Smiling, Shifu said. Then I will finally have paid for my mistake. No one said anything. Listen to me, all of you. It is time for you all to continue your journeys without me. I am very proud to have been your master, he said, bowing to his students. Everyone, including Naruto, bowed in an instant. Shifu turned around and walked towards the moon pool while Tigress took Naruto's arm and dragged him away. When they reached the bottom of the temple, they saw that the entire valley was almost in a panic. Most of the villagers were already leaving, and some were simply terrified. We need to get them out safely, Tigress said as she supported Naruto. She and the rest of the 5 were still injured from the battle. Come here, little one, said Monkey as he picked up a baby piglet. Let's go find your mom. With that he ran away. Tigress turned to her friends. Viper, gather the southern villagers. Mantis, the north, she ordered with a nod. They left, and she turned to the bird. Crane, light the way, she said, handing him the lantern. Naruto watched as the 5 left, one after the other. He felt terrible, like he had failed them all simply by not being the dragon warrior. He sighed and watched as Tigress helped Ayam with her family's belongings. He sat down, took out the dragon scroll, and looked at the empty page. How are you feeling? Tuchi asked as he approached Naruto. Horrible, Naruto replied without looking away. Tuchi sighed before sitting next to Naruto. I'm sorry if things didn't work out. Maybe it wasn't meant to be, that's what everyone else is saying, she said, pointing at the villagers who were passing by, pointing and laughing. None of them noticed Tigress return and stand near them. That's when Tuchi had an idea. You know, I remember when we took you in. You were just as depressed as you are now. But when I gave you that small bowl of ramen, it was like you gained a new life. Naruto smiled at that. I still remember when you would constantly ask what was in ramen that made it so special. I was going to tell you today since it was your birthday. The tigress's eyes widened at that. But I don't know, Naruto chuckled. Might as well, okay, Tuchi said. The secret ingredient to making my ramen like this is… He paused for dramatic effect. Nothing. Both Naruto and Tigress looked confused. What? Nothing? Naruto repeated. Yes, he shouted with a laugh. Nothing at all. There's no secret ingredient. Wait, is this just regular ramen? Tuchi punched Naruto in the back of his head. Oh, idiot! My ramen isn't just regular ramen, she said. My ramen is special because I think it's special, that's all, she explained, standing up. By the way, I think your friend is here, she said, walking away. Naruto stood up and looked at Tigress. I think I understand, he said. What? I still don't understand. she said, clearly confused. He smiled as he looked back at the scroll. There's nothing that can make it special, because it's already there, he said, seeing his reflection. Then he turned and started running, until Tigress stopped him. Where are you going? She asked. To stop Tai Lung, he said, causing her eyes to widen. What? I'm the dragon warrior, after all, so I might as well do it, he said with a smile. She smiled as she looked down. Thank you, he smiled back before hugging her. I should be thanking you. If it weren't for you, the Five, or Master Shifu, then I would never be who I am today and… He stopped. So? She said, wanting him to continue. And I'm grateful to have met you, he said, causing her eyes to widen. Before she could do anything, she froze when she felt him kiss her cheek. Make sure the villagers escape safely, he said, heading up the stairs. All Tigress could do was nod dumbly. She shook her head and smiled, feeling a blush rise to her cheeks, and was thankful her fur covered it. Be careful, Naruto, she whispered. Entrance to the Hall of Heroes. Shifu stood at the top of the steps waiting. He knew he wouldn't have to wait long because he could already feel Tai Lung's presence nearby. A storm had gathered and there was a roll of thunder. The thunder roared and Shifu closed his eyes before opening them and seeing Tai Lung in front of him. I've arrived home, master, he said, bowing. Shifu glared at him. This is no longer your house, and I am no longer your master, he said. Oh yeah, said the snow leopard. You have a new favorite. So where's Naruto? He asked, looking behind Shifu. He chuckled when he didn't see anyone. Did I scare him? This battle is between you and me, Shifu said. Tai Lung sighed and turned around. That's how it's going to be. That's how it should be, Shifu said as he took a stance. Tai Lung growled before leaping high into the air and crashing into the ground, where Shifu was. Only Shifu jumped back and into the temple before Tai Lung crashed into the ground, creating a small crater. He then kicked a giant boulder and kicked it towards Shifu. The red panda turned around before smashing the boulder into small pieces. However, Tai Lung jumped and punched Shifu in the face, sending him flying and crashing through the gates. Thankfully, he landed safely. I rotted in that jail for 20 years because of your weakness, Tai Lung shouted as he walked inside. Obeying your master is not weakness, Shifu shouted. You knew I was the dragon warrior. You always knew. But when Uwe said otherwise, what did you do? What did you do? Nothing, Tai Lung shouted with all the hatred he had. You weren't meant to be the dragon warrior. It wasn't my fault, Shifu shouted. Isn't it your fault? Tai Lung repeated as he approached Shifu. Who filled my head with dreams? He kicked a stand and Shifu jumped on it. Who took me to train until my bones broke? He then picked up a shield and threw it. Shifu dodged it, and it lodged inside a pillar. Who denied me my destiny? He then picked up a stand full of edged weapons and threw them at Shifu. Luckily, the old master deflected all of the weapons with ease. Tai Lung then picked up a large blade-like cleaver and kicked it towards Shifu. With great skill, Shifu spun it around in his hand and slammed it into the ground. It was never my decision, Tai Lung growled before jumping onto Uguay's staff. He picked it up and said, Now it is. Shifu glared and rushed towards his traitorous student. He tried to kick him, but Tai Lung blocked it and kicked back. They both jumped to the side, but Tai Lung used Uguay's staff to grab Shifu by the neck and threw him to the ground. He began to press down on the staff, choking Shifu. Give me the scroll! I'd rather die! Shifu shouted. Tai Lung growled and pressed the staff even harder. They both struggled, and finally the staff gave way. It snapped in half and fell to one side. Shifu turned and looked at it gloomily. A noise caught his attention, so he turned. He didn't have time to block as Tai Lung kicked him against the wall, creating spidery cracks. They both jumped onto the pillars, with Tai Lung chasing Shifu. Suddenly, the leopard caught Shifu and threw him onto the roof, then jumped and punched him through the roof and into the air. Shifu could do nothing as Tai Lung punched, clawed, and kicked him hard. Seeing an opening, he grabbed Tai Lung's arm and bent it backward. He landed on Tai Lung's back, and they began to fall toward the temple. Narrowing his eyes, Tai Lung elbowed Shifu and shifted positions. They crashed into the ceiling, and just as they were about to hit the ground, Tai Lung let go of Shifu and kicked him against a pillar. Tai Lung was thrown back by the force and landed on a lantern. He ignited the ground, creating blue flames. He walked across it on all fours, causing the fire to stay in his paws. "Everything I did to make you proud," he shouted, giving Shifu a barrage of punches. "Tell me how proud you are of Shifu." The punches grew fiercer. Tell me, he shouted, hitting Shifu so hard that he flew towards the moon pool. When Shifu landed, parts of him were still smoking. Tai Lung stopped the flames as Shifu spoke. "I have always been proud of you," Shifu said weakly. "From the very first moment, I have been proud of you." This stopped Tai Lung for a moment. "And it was my pride that blinded me. I loved you too much to see what you were becoming, what I," he looked Tai Lung in the eyes, "was turning you into. I'm sorry." Tai Lung's eyes widened. Shifu was hopeful for a moment before Tai Lung's eyes narrowed and he grabbed him by the neck. "I don't want your apology," he growled. He then lifted Shifu into the air. "I want my scroll." As Shifu struggled, Tai Lung looked over to where the scroll was. "What?" he gasped when he didn't see the scroll. Angrily, he slammed Shifu into the ground. "Where is it? Dragon Warrior has taken the scroll to half of China now," Shifu struggled to say. "You will never see that scroll, Tai Lung," he said, causing Tai Lung to extend his claws. "Never." Tai Lung raised his claw and was about to attack until someone shouted, "Hey!" Looking over, he saw a nine-tailed fox panting by the broken doors. Too many stairs," he gasped. "Who are you?" asked Tai Lung. "Dude, I'm the Dragon Warrior," Naruto said as he controlled his breathing. "But you can call me Naruto," he said, taking a stance. "You?" asked Tai Lung. "Him?" he asked rhetorically as he dropped Shifu. "He's a fox." He then looked at Naruto. "You're a fox with 9 tails. What are you going to do, big guy?" "Did you hit me with your bushy tails?" he asked with a grin. "Don't tempt me," Naruto replied. Laughing, he pulled out the scroll and said, "No, I'll use this." "Want it? Come get it," he mocked. Tai Lung appeared and punched Naruto in the face, sending him flying backward and dropping the scroll. "Finally!" he shouted. Naruto flew backward before his tails cushioned him and landed against a pillar. Using this to his advantage, Naruto leaped forward and used the momentum to accelerate. He then flew forward and knocked Tai Lung away from the scroll and broke a pillar. Naruto couldn't help but wince in pain. "That had to hurt," he said. His eyes widened as he saw Tai Lung running towards him. Naruto screamed before running away, but just as he reached the door, Tai Lung slammed into his back. The force sent them both flying over the steps leading up to the temple. Naruto quickly caught the fallen scroll and looked to see Tai Lung grabbing it. All he could do was give a sly smile. This enraged Tai Lung as he kneed Naruto in the stomach, causing Naruto to bolt. Naruto crashed into a roof, bounced, and then landed on a tree as it bent to the ground. Tai Lung jumped off afterward, but Naruto smirked as he let go of the tree and allowed it to hit Tai Lung. This didn't stop him though. He quickly ran up to Naruto and kicked him down the steps. "That scroll's mine!" he shouted and jumped after Naruto. He grabbed the scroll, but Naruto didn't let go. As this was happening, they kept jumping on the steps with Tai Lung on the bottom each time. They then both crashed through the roof of a building, causing Naruto to drop the scroll. He landed next to a pot of noodles and Tai Lung landed on a roof. He looked and saw the scroll near Tai Lung and then saw the noodles next to it, giving him an idea. Could do was give a sly smile. This enraged Tai Lung as he kneed Naruto in the stomach, causing Naruto to bolt. Naruto crashed into a roof, bounced, and then landed on a tree as it bent to the ground. Tai Lung jumped off afterward, but Naruto smirked as he let go of the tree and allowed it to hit Tai Lung. This didn't stop him though. He quickly ran up to Naruto and kicked him down the steps. "That scroll's mine!" he shouted and jumped after Naruto. He grabbed the scroll, but Naruto didn't let go. As this was happening, they kept jumping on the steps with Tai Lung on the bottom each time. They then both crashed through the roof of a building, causing Naruto to drop the scroll. He landed next to a pot of noodles and Tai Lung landed on a roof. He looked and saw the scroll near Tai Lung and then saw the noodles next to it, giving him an idea. As Tai Lung approached the scroll, Naruto used the noodles as a whip to push the scroll away from the leopard. Unfortunately, he was unable to do anything as the scroll bounced off his face and flew away. Tai Lung jumped after him, but Naruto quickly grabbed him by the legs, forced him to the ground, and landed on a chariot. Naruto stood on its handles, so when Tai Lung landed, he forced Naruto to fly. The fox couldn't help but smile at this. It was very funny to him. He then noticed it had noodles, so he slurped them all up. The scroll landed inside a lantern, and Naruto in a small bamboo garden. A rustling sound was heard, and Naruto stepped out onto some bamboo stilts. He tried to keep his balance but couldn't and knocked over some pans. The scroll fell off the lantern and rolled to where Tai Lung landed. He was about to grab the scroll until a pan smashed into his face, creating an indentation. Grinning, Naruto knocked all the plates over, and they all landed upside down with the scroll underneath one of them. Tai Lung removed the saucepan from his head and watched as Naruto began to move the saucepans with incredible speed. "Lightning!" Naruto shouted. Enraged, Tai Lung kicked all the saucepans and reached for the scroll, but Naruto stopped him with his stilts. He kept stopping Tai Lung with them and had enough. The leopard spread his stilts and grabbed the scroll while laughing. However, Naruto landed on top of him. The scroll began to roll and Tai Lung threw Naruto off of it. Looking where it landed, Naruto saw fireworks surrounding it. As Tai Lung approached the scroll, he heard a sound. Turning, as he ran, he saw Naruto on a cart full of lit fireworks heading towards him. His eyes widened before he was pushed aside as Naruto burst into it. Naruto grabbed the scroll and smiled until the bottom of the cart hit a rock and sent Naruto flying into a wall, head first. The scroll went up and landed inside the mouth of a stone dragon. He turned and saw Tai Lung running towards him. He turned and took a deep breath before jumping onto a ledge. Tai Lung watched as Naruto jumped onto the wall and approached the scroll. "The scroll has given him power!" "No!" he shouted as he jumped and kicked the wall with all his might. This caused the entire building to start falling. The force of the kick also managed to make the dragon's head crush and the scroll fly. Naruto quickly climbed up and started running. But the tiles were falling down, so he was actually running on the spot. Luckily, it was at that moment that Tai Lung approached him because the tiles started shooting at the leopard's face, in a comical manner. Naruto managed to climb back up. So he jumped up, grabbed another tile, jumped off it, and grabbed the scroll. However, he turned around and saw Tai Lung jump into the air and spin. He quickly closed in and kicked Naruto in the head, sending him crashing to the ground. Due to his anger, Tai Lung shot towards Naruto's form and caused a shockwave as he hit the fox. Once the cloud of dust was gone, Tai Lung stood over Naruto's aching body. "Finally," he said as he took the scroll. "The power of the dragon scroll is mine!" he shouted as he opened the scroll. Suddenly, his excited look turned into one of confusion as he could only see a golden page. "What? It's nothing!" This enraged Tai Lung even more as he dropped the scroll and walked over to Naruto, who was trying to stand up. Once there, he grabbed the fox by the neck and growled. "Where is the real dragon scroll? That is it!" Naruto said as he grabbed Tai Lung's hand, trying to pull it away. Snarling in anger, Tai Lung raised his hand and extended his claws. Just as he was about to kill Naruto, someone shouted, "No!" from behind and kicked him, knocking Naruto to the ground. Turning Tai Lung around, he chuckled when he saw it was Tigress. "Tigress?" Naruto asked weakly. However, she didn't hear him as she looked at the laughing Tai Lung. "It's so good to see you again, Tigress." "Shut up," he growled. "I won't let you hurt Naruto anymore," she yelled. Tai Lung then laughed. "I thought so," he shouted before standing up and giving Tigress a look. "You love him, don't you?" he asked, making Naruto's eyes widen. She didn't reply. "Silence is all the answer I need." "No matter, I'll kill you both and find out where you hid the royal scroll," she said. Suddenly, she dashed forward and punched Tigress in the face, sending her flying into a wall. "Tigress!" Naruto shouted as he tried to stand, but fell due to his injuries. Tigress stepped out, holding her side. Without saying anything, she ran straight at Tai Lung. She tried to use a palm strike, but Tai Lung simply moved his arm out of the way and spun around and kicked her. She got up and ran at him again. This time he kept dodging every time she tried to attack. Her anger was rising as she glared at Tai Lung, with him holding an amused smile. He finally punched her in the stomach, making her gasp for breath. He then flipped her over and kicked her in the chin, shooting her into the air. Naruto watched in fear as Tai Lung leaped at her. He grabbed her by the neck and spun around. He let go, sending her crashing to the ground. He then landed on top of her, chuckling. "Pathetic," Tai Lung said as he rolled off of her. He then kicked her hard. Hard enough that she was thrown right next to Naruto. "Tigress?" he whispered fearfully. She looked up at him weakly. There was blood at the corner of her mouth and some on her fur. Sorry, Naruto," she said weakly, starting to cough. "It's okay, Tigress, just rest now," he said as he took her hand. She nodded before closing her eyes and staying still. Tears sprang to her eyes as she looked at his form. Tai Lung started to approach, laughing like a madman. "She really was pathetic, thinking she could defeat me. I'm glad she's gone," he said. "Shut up," Naruto whispered. Tai Lung didn't hear him. "After I'm done with you, I'll get rid of the rest of those furious 5. Shut up!" Naruto shouted in a strange voice, as a strange red energy exploded out of him. Tai Lung staggered back in shock as this happened. He watched as the energy swirled around Naruto before flowing into Tigress. She glowed red for a moment, and all her wounds healed. The energy left her body and her body began to breathe again, but she did not wake up. Naruto stood up, after gently bringing his hand down, and Tai Lung's eyes opened wide. Naruto's eyes were no longer blue, but now blood red with slits. As Tai Lung watched, all he could see was hatred for him. Naruto disappeared before appearing in front of Tai Lung with his fist buried in his stomach. Tai Lung gasped as he ran out of breath. Naruto then moved and elbowed him in the back, knocking him to the ground. Naruto growled as he grabbed Tai Lung by the tail and threw him away. He then reappeared in front of the leopard and began using a barrage of punches. While this was happening, Tai Lung couldn't do a single thing because he thought he's a monster. Naruto then grabbed him by the neck and lifted him up. "You hurt her," he growled. "Now I break you." He raised his hand, extended his claws and was about to strike until someone hugged him from behind. "Naruto," Tigress whispered. "Please stop," she begged. She froze when she heard his voice. "It's over. He can't hurt anyone anymore." "But it hurt you," Naruto replied. "And I'm healed," she replied. "If you hurt him, then you're no better." This made Naruto's eyes widen. He dropped Tai Lung as he clutched his head in pain. "Get out of my head!" Naruto yelled as his voice changed. The red energy began to flow back into him slowly until there was nothing left. He fell to his knees, with Tigress still holding him from behind. He turned and she looked and saw his eyes turning blue again. He frowned when he looked at her. She had tears falling from her eyes and looked incredibly sad. "Tigress," he whispered. He placed his hand on her cheek, making her unconsciously stroke it and wipe her tears away. "Thank you. What for?" she asked, blushing. Again, she was grateful that her fur hid her blush. "Saving me. If it weren't for you, I would have turned into a monster." She just smiled and hugged him, to which he happily replied. "Can I ask something?" "Yes," she said with a raised eyebrow. "Is what he said true?" he asked, pointing to Tai Lung, who was now unconscious. "What is true?" she asked, confused. "That you love me," he clarified. Her eyes widened before she started babbling. After a few amusing minutes, Naruto silenced her with a kiss that surprised her. A moment later, she returned it. They broke apart after a second. "I love you," he said. He smiled. "I love you too. Well, that's fun," Tai Lung said as he stood up, although shakily, and it was clear his right arm was broken. You can't defeat me," he gasped. You stupid nine-tailed fox!" He tried to use a temper tantrum on Naruto, but Naruto grabbed his finger with ease. "I'm not a stupid nine-tailed fox," Naruto said. I'm just Naruto Uzumaki, the nine-tailed fox and dragon warrior, he said, raising his pinky finger. Tai Lung saw this and shrank back in fear. Wuxi's finger, he gasped. Oh, you know this winery? Naruto asked. Tigress saw what was about to happen and hid behind Naruto. You're bluff, said Tai Lung. You're lying. Shifu didn't teach you that. Actually, he did, Naruto said before flexing his pinky finger. Believe it, he said before a shockwave of golden energy erupted through the valley. All the villagers returned to the valley, believing the battle was over when they saw a golden energy. A cloud of dust accumulated throughout the valley, and they couldn't see anything. Finally, after a minute, two shadows appeared through the cloud. They waited as the figures slowly moved forward and the dust clouds slowly lifted. They were surprised to see Tigress supporting Naruto on her shoulder. They stopped, and all the villagers cheered, chanting, "Dragon Warrior! Way to go, Naruto!" I am and Tucci shouted from the crowd. The crowd parted and watched as 4 of the Furious 5 advanced. Hey guys, Naruto said. Master, they said in return as they bowed. He turned and saw Tigress smiling at him. Master, she said, tilting her head. He smiled before tilting his head up and kissing her. Of course, this surprised everyone watching, except for Ayam, who whispered. I called him. They separated and Naruto whispered. Master Naruto? Does that sound alright? He then widened his eyes and shouted. Master Shifu. He let go of Tigress and ran towards the temple. Once there, he ran inside and saw Shifu lying near the moon pool. Master! Shifu, are you okay? He turned Shifu around and saw him open his eyes. Naruto, you're alive or you both were dead, he said. No, master, I did not die. I defeated Tai Lung. Did you do it? Shifu asked with Naruto nodding his head. Wow. It's just as Abway predicted. He looked at Naruto. You are the Dragon Warrior. You have brought peace to this valley, and into me. Thank you, he said weakly before closing his eyes. No! Naruto shouted. Master! No, 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 please don't die! I'm not dying, you idiot! Shifu shouted before correcting himself. A Dragon Warrior. I'm just at peace, finally, he said, lying back and closing his eyes with a smile. Naruto smiled and left the temple. Tigress stood at the entrance. How is she? She asked worriedly. He just found peace, Naruto said. Though to me he just looks like he's asleep. I see. She smiled. Naruto walked up to her, kissed her, and then hugged her. So what now, Dragon Warrior's girlfriend? He asked, making her laugh lightly. I don't know. Maybe everyone needs to rest now, he said, yawning. Naruto said. Good idea. Let's go. And they both walked towards the temple to rest, thankful that the battle was over and that they had found each other. Little did they know that an even greater legend would soon begin. Movie 2. On a mountain, the wolves hammered the metal while everyone else worked. When they finished hammering, they stacked the metal and then placed it in a furnace. Here, the metal melted. A large, one-eyed fox jumped down, landing on a platform before kneeling. It's almost done, Lord Shin, but we've run out of metal, he said hoarsely. A white-feathered peacock hid in the shadows as it commanded. Search the farthest villages. Find more metal. China will be mine. Jade Palace. Outside the training room, there were 2 children. One a pig and the other a rabbit. Both were playing with Naruto and Tigress action figures. And then the Dragon Warrior joined the Furious 5, the rabbit shouted. And they became the most awesome kung fu team of all time, the pig shouted. Enough talk, said the bunny as he tried to imitate Naruto's voice. Let's fight! They started banging their toys together just as they heard noises coming from the training room. Listen! Listen! You can hear the Dragon Warrior training right now. 33. Stop him! Mantis shouted. 34. Viper gasped. It's very dangerous. Mantis shouted. 35. Stay focused, Tigress said. 36. Crane exclaimed. 37. They all shouted together. How is he doing that? Mantis yelled. With one last sip, Naruto finished another bowl of ramen. 38. He said proudly, putting the last bowl back on the stack. Everyone clapped with Mantis saying, Yes! A new record! Monster! He said in amazement. Keep going! Monkey encouraged as he placed another bowl of ramen in front of the fox. Hit 40! He'll never live to be 40! Crane shouted. You guys are looking at me turning 40! Naruto said as he sipped the 39th bowl. He picked up the last bowl and looked at it before looking at Tigress. Do it! He ordered. No problem, he said, throwing away his chopsticks and gulping down the ramen. He let out a very satisfied 40, he said. Everyone cheered and congratulated him. A new record! Shouted Mantis. He did it! Viper said. Well done, Naruto! Crane praised. Your training has been worth it. Tigress commented with a smile. Naruto smiled back as he looked at his friends. They haven't changed since the Tai Lung incident, and it couldn't be better. Naruto, however, added something to the back of his red vest. A golden dragon and a tiger swirling around an orange fox. It was too much to show that he was the dragon warrior, and the fact that he had a tiger made it fun for Tigress. Speaking of the tiger, Naruto couldn't be happier to be in a relationship with her. They were both completely in love with each other, and now share a room. They have the occasional spar, and it usually ends with Tigress winning. A bell rang, bringing Naruto out of his thoughts. He stood up, saying, Master Shifu, I have to go. See you later, he said before kissing Tigress and leaving the room. He came back and quickly said, Save me the rest of my ramen, okay? Dragon's Cave. In a large cavern near the Jade Palace, Shifu sat. In front of him was a large stone dragon. Now that he was the spiritual advisor of the Jade Palace, he wore a jade-green shawl secured with a golden clasp. He meditated, listening to the drops of water falling from the ceiling. Inner peace, he whispered with a smile. His ear twitched as he heard someone, probably Naruto, wading through the water. You wanted to see me, Master Shifu? Naruto asked as he approached the red panda. He noticed Shifu taking long, deep breaths. What are you doing, Master? He asked. One of Master Ogue's last teachings, he said solemnly. They both looked up and saw a drop of water about to fall. Without saying anything, Shifu slid his left foot and waved his arms in fluid motions. He moved his right arm upward, palm up. Naruto watched in amazement as he saw the drop of water fall and somehow float into Shifu's hand. He moved the drop around his arms and finally let the water fall onto a plant. It then moved slowly until it fell into the water, creating a single ripple. Whoa, was all Naruto could say. How did you do that? He asked after a minute. Inner peace, Shifu said calmly with a smile. Inner peace, Naruto repeated. What exactly is it? He asked. It's the next phase of your training, Shifu replied. Every teacher must find their path to inner peace. Suddenly, Naruto turned around and saw Shifu walking down a set of stone steps. Looking back, he didn't see the teacher where he had been a second ago. By the time Shifu finished speaking, he was twirling his staff while balancing on a lone rock in the middle of the pond. Some choose to meditate for 50 years in a cave like this. He spun around and landed on his staff with perfect balance. Without the slightest taste of food or water, Naruto grimaced at the thought of not eating ramen for 50 years. Or? Naruto said hopefully. Some find it through pain and suffering, like me. Shifu continued with a serious look. Naruto, the day you were chosen as the Dragon Warrior was the worst day of my life. By far. Nothing else came close. It was the worst, the most painful, the most terrible and devastating moment. Okay, Naruto said with his right eye twitching a lot. I've experienced it before. Shifu finished, shuddering at the memory. Then he smiled. But when I realized the problem wasn't you, but within me, I found inner peace and was able to tap into the flow of the universe. So I need to find my inner peace, Naruto said. He walked over to where Shifu was meditating and closed his eyes, breathing deeply. He began to copy the movements, of course, with most of them wrong. Shifu smiled at the thought of the attempt. Just as Naruto finished, they heard someone running. Turning around, they saw Tigress appear. Naruto! Bandits! Approaching the musician's village! Naruto narrowed his eyes before turning to Shifu. Don't worry, Master, I will master inner peace again. he said, bowing. He turned to Tigress only to see her smile. No ramen for this time, he warned her as he poked her chest with his finger. Naruto laughed. Ramen stops? Wait, are you serious? He asked as he jumped off the edge of the cliff and grabbed Crane's legs. Musician's village. A rabbit banged on a bell as hard as he could. A pig jumped back as a harpoon pierced the ground. The nearby elderly rabbit didn't even notice. More harpoons pierced the ground, and bandit wolves slithered down the ropes. Once Boss Wolf landed, he ordered, "Get all the metal you can find!" Then, all the wolves went into every building and took all the metal they could find. Bells, gongs, instruments, anything. Some of the villagers grabbed their stolen instruments and managed to get carried away. That's it. Let's get out of here, he ordered, and all the wolves started tying up all the metal. Hey! A voice shouted. The wolves turned and saw the Furious Five and the Dragon Warrior leap off the cliff. They all landed and took a stance that made the wolves back away in fear. The villagers cheered and one shouted, "The Dragon Warrior! The fox?" "That's impossible," Wolf Boss argued. "Let's beat them fast," Naruto said with the others nodding. "Catch them!" cried the Great Wolf. "Let's go!" Naruto shouted and everyone ran. A wolf with a large sword tried to slash at Naruto. The nine-tailed fox, however, managed to dodge them all with ease before grabbing the wolf by the arm and kicking it in the stomach. It then used its tails to whip the wolf into a gong, with the villagers cheering. Monkey jumped and kicked all the wolves. He then landed in front of one and struck the wolf's head with two cymbals. The old rabbit, who didn't seem to realize what was going on and was playing his lute, sat down on a rock and it seemed to move with him, scaring the wolves away. The rock stopped moving and showed Mantis taking down the rabbit. Mantis then dashed forward and slashed the wolf's sword into pieces before kicking it. Viper chased away all the wolves that got in his way and yelled, "Take that!" As one flew into a drum, Naruto knocked down all the wolves that rushed at him. He turned and saw Tigress knock down a wolf before kicking it. She then caught a spear between her legs and threw it away, hitting a wolf and sending it flying into a gong. The noise it made her shiver. The wolves in the distance had bows and shot their arrows at Naruto. Seeing this, Mantis shouted, "Naruto! Incoming!" while throwing out several arrow-shaped symbols. Naruto turned his head, while still hitting a wolf, and saw the arrows colliding with the symbols. "Thank you, Mantis!" Naruto shouted. He then turned around and saw wolves surrounding the rabbit, which Naruto now thought was blind. He grabbed two luchin and blocked a sword strike, creating a horrible sound that made the older rabbit tremble. Using his tails, Naruto picked up the rabbit from the ground and spun around while blocking all the wolves' weapons. The rabbit continued to play even after it was put down. Naruto then slammed the luchin onto a wolf's foot, making it whimper, before spinning around and knocking back all the wolves. It stopped spinning and saw more wolves running at him with thrown weapons. He jumped towards a building and the weapons created a ring, which Naruto ran through to avoid being impaled. He jumped onto the roof and blocked an enemy's attack. Seeing that there were many wolves, Naruto shouted, "Tigress, double killing blow!" Tigress nodded from where she stood and jumped onto the roof. She grabbed her lover's hand and spun him around, knocking down all the wolves. Tigress then turned around and threw Naruto into the air. She turned around and kicked every wolf she came up against. When she landed, she knocked down a wolf and said, "Tigress!" She appeared and kicked a wolf. "Monkey!" Naruto yelled as the monkey appeared, grabbing a wolf and throwing it away. "Viper!" Naruto yelled as he whipped a wolf in the face. Naruto grabbed the wolf and held it down. "Mantis!" The insect appeared and kept kicking the wolf in the head. "Bunny!" Naruto yelled finally as he held the blind rabbit. "Wait, what?" Realizing his mistake, he said sorry and punched the wolf. Wolf Boss saw that they were losing, so he howled to the top of the mountain. Gorillas grabbed the ropes and started bringing up all the metal that was attached. Seeing that one of the metal bells, Naruto shouted, "Crane, go! I'm on it!" Crane shouted as he flew toward the rope and sliced it with his wing. The metal sack began to fall and Naruto jumped after it. He grabbed it in the air and Viper jumped behind it to grab its tail. Monkey jumped as well and caught Viper's tail, and Tigress did the same from the edge of the cliff. She pulled on Monkey's tail and threw them all behind her. The sack landed and was about to roll away until Mantis stopped it. The other kung fu masters landed and Naruto quickly asked the villagers, "Is everyone okay?" They all cheered, which made him sigh in relief. Hearing a noise, they all turned and saw Chief Wolf running towards them with his hammer raised. "I understand this," said Naruto. He was about to block the wolf's attack until he saw the symbol on the wolf's shoulder. His eyes widened as memories flashed before him. He saw fire. It was everywhere, and he also heard people screaming, "Naruto!" Tigress yelled as she caught him before he could land on the villagers. Boss Wolf laughed and said, "Bite that, Foxy!" before grabbing a rope. He was stopped in the mountains before anyone could do anything. "Naruto, are you okay?" Tigress asked, worried. Naruto just nodded dumbly. "What happened? I think." He took on a serious expression. "I have to go." Dragon's Cave. Naruto slowly walked towards the small cavern where Shifu was meditating. "Master?" Naruto said loudly. Hearing the concerns in his voice, Shifu turned to Naruto. "What is Dragon Warrior? Is something wrong?" he asked worriedly. Naruto sat down. "Well, when the others and I saved the musician's village, something happened. The leader had a symbol on his shoulder. It was a red eye. When I saw it, I saw," Shifu urged. "I saw my old village on fire," Naruto said with a frown. "On fire?" Shifu repeated, confused. "I thought you said you ran away." Naruto hesitated before sighing. "I lied. The truth is, the day I left, my village was attacked. I couldn't remember what happened, just fire and me running." "But why did you lie?" Shifu asked. "I don't know," he admitted. "I guess I lied because I couldn't forgive myself for running." Shifu was silent for a moment before asking, "Why does that symbol remind you of fire?" "Through the flames, I think I saw that symbol running. A lot of them, I think," he said with a confused face. "Interesting. Can you draw the symbol you saw?" he asked. Nodding, Naruto grabbed a small, flat stone, extended one of his nails, and drew the symbol. Once finished, he gave it to his teacher. The second Shifu saw the symbol. His eyes widened. "I think so," he said after narrowing his eyes. "What?" Naruto asked. Shaking his head, Shifu replied, "It doesn't matter now. You should go rest. That memory must have tired you out." Naruto nodded and left. Gongmen City. Outside the Tower of the Sacred Flame, there were 4 figures. A rhinoceros holding a hammer, a crocodile holding a spiked sword, an ox holding 2 axes, and an aging goat. They were Master Thundering Rhino, Master Fierce Crocodile, Master Storm Ox, and the Fortune Teller. Croc and Ox were sparring while Rhino refereed. "Good. Watch your form," said Rhino as Croc rolled away from Ox's blow. He ran toward Ox and began blocking his attacks. To avoid being hit, Croc jumped high into the air. "Good," he congratulated Rhino. Outside the tower's courtyard, a lone peacock walked toward the tower gates. As it walked, it could clearly be heard wearing metal. As it approached the gates, 6 antelopes readied their weapons and charged, believing it to be an enemy. The peacock, however, simply spread its right wing and brought them all down. It walked past them without even looking at the fallen antelopes, and stood outside the gates. It cut the lock and opened the gates, causing Master Croc and Ox to stop fighting. "Shun?" whispered the diviner. "Good afternoon, gentlemen," Lord Shun said loudly. "Now that we've got the pleasantries out of the way, please leave my house." "Your house?" asked Ox. "Yeah. Didn't you see the peacock at the front door?" he asked sarcastically. He stopped walking as he stood near the fortune teller. "Ah, there you are, fortune teller. It seems your fortune-telling skills aren't as good as you thought." "We'll see, Shun," he said with a look. "No, you'll see, old goat," he replied. Then he started walking toward the teachers. "Where were we? What do you want, Shun?" Rhino asked calmly. "What is rightfully mine?" "Gongmen City!" Shun shouted his reply. "Gongmen is under the direction of the Master Council, and we will protect him," Rhino said. "Even from you," Shun laughed. Behind him, The wolves were walking while pulling a large object inside a box. I'm glad you feel that way. Otherwise, I would have dragged it here for nothing, he said, pointing at the box. What's in the box, Shin? Asked Master Ox. Do you want to see? It's a gift. It's your parting gift, in the sense that it will separate you, Shin replied. Part of you here, part of you there, and part of you way over there, staining the wall, he shouted with a crazed look in his eyes. You insolent fool! Ox shouted as he charged at Shin. He reached the stairs before jumping. However, Shin threw a long white rope that wrapped around Ox's horn, and then slammed him to the ground. Croc jumped next, but Shin jumped as well and kicked him. He also threw 3 metal feathers at Croc. Croc quickly turned around and used his sword to deflect the weapons. As Shin landed, a long, wavy sword appeared on his wing. Both Ox and Croc rushed at Shin and tried everything to defeat him, but each attack was blocked, dodged, or deflected as he easily defeated them. The second they were defeated, Shin threw more feathers at Rhino. However, Master Rhino used his hammer and horn to deflect all of those weapons as he slowly descended the steps. When he reached the bottom, he thrust his hammer forward, causing Shin to slide backward. When he stopped, Shin saw that all of his knives were dead. Looks good, he muttered. That's a warning, Rhino warned. You're no match for our kung fu, I agree, Shin said. But this is it. He indicated the box with a smile. He quickly flew over and opened the box. Inside was a large cannon. Seeing this, Rhino prepared to defend himself against the weapon. Shaking his ankles, Shin ignited the cannon, and he shot. Jade Palace. At the gates of the temple, Shifu and the other warriors were standing. Are you familiar with the master of Gongmen City? Shifu asked as he read a message. Naruto thought for a moment. That's Master Thundering Rhino, isn't it? Yes, it is, Shifu replied. He's also the son of the legendary Flying Rhino and slayer of the 10,000 snakes in the Valley of Woe, right? He asked. If it is, very well, said Tigress. Naruto chuckled. He's dead, Shino said, making everyone's eyes widen. That's impossible, Crane stammered. Rhino's horn defense is impervious to any technique, Tigress argued. It was no technique, Shifu replied. Lord Shin has created a weapon, one that breathes fire and spits metal. They all walked towards the steps. Unless he is stopped, this could be the end of Kung Fu. He then pointed with his Naruto staff. And now you must save him. Turning around, he pointed outside the valley. Go! Destroy this weapon and bring Lord Shin to justice. The furious 5 ran down the stairs, but Naruto walked in front of Shifu. But how can I do this? I mean, how can Kung Fu stop something that stops Kung Fu? He questioned. Remember, Dragon Warrior, anything is possible when you have inner peace, Shifu replied with a smile. Naruto nodded and was about to leave until Shifu said, Also, Dragon Warrior, that symbol you showed me. It belongs to Lord Shin. Hearing this, Naruto's eyes widened. When you see it, don't let your anger cloud your mind. It may be his symbol, but that doesn't mean he was there and ordered the attack. It may have just been the wolves attacking, he warned. Naruto hesitated before nodding. Yes, master, he said before running after the 5. When he caught up, the villagers cheered. That night, a boat slowly headed toward Gongmen City. Inside the small boat, Naruto and the 5 slept. Naruto's dream. Naruto opened his eyes to find himself in a dense forest. It was beautiful to anyone who saw it. He looked around until he saw a figure he recognized. Old man? He whispered, his eyes wide. In front of him was an elderly monkey, dressed in white and red robes. He smiled, turned around, and began walking. Wait! Naruto shouted, but kept walking. No matter how fast he ran, Naruto couldn't catch up to the walking monkey. Eventually, Naruto sprinted to a stop as he watched in horror as the old monkey walked into a burning village. The eye symbol appeared, and the fire began to burn even brighter. Naruto woke up with a gasp as sweat dripped from his forehead. He gasped and looked around before sighing in relief. He stood up before looking down to see Tigress. Frowning, he stepped out and stood there, staring up at the moon. He sighed before feeling a drop of water hit his head. He looked up and then sighed again. Standing up, he went through the posture he was in when he saw Shifu at the Dragon Grotto. While doing this, he kept whispering, "Inner peace," the whole time. Droplets of water kept falling on his head. When he finished, he groaned in frustration as he thought about his dream. It kept angering him, so much so that he punched the ship's mast, creating a fist-shaped indentation. A cough caught his attention. Looking up, he saw Tigress looking at him with amusement and concern in her eyes. "Hello? I'm training right now. The mast is not a worthy opponent," she said before jumping up and taking a stance with her right palm facing him, signaling him to strike. "I'm ready," Naruto smirked. "Okay," he said, taking his own stance. He took a deep breath before throwing his punch. It hit the Tigress's palm, creating a shockwave that made ripples in the water around the boat. The shockwave even shook the boat a little. Naruto's left eye began to twitch as he said "ow" through gritted teeth. "Apologies," he said, looking at his palm. "I used to hit the ironwood trees by the palace to train. Now I don't feel anything." "Whoa," was all Naruto could say. Tigress smiled before getting serious. "Again," she said, returning to her posture. Naruto smirked before punching him in the hand, though not as hard as last time. "So, this punching ironwood trees, how long have you had to do that?" he asked. 20 years, she replied. "Whoa," he said again. 20 years? I doubt I could do that. Wasn't there a faster way? No. Besides," he said as she grabbed his fist. She flipped him over and made him fall onto his back. "I don't think that method is for you," she said sincerely. Sighing, Naruto sat down and leaned against the side of the boat. Tigress knelt beside him and rested her head on his shoulder. "Naruto, why are you really here?" she asked softly. Just as he was about to say something, the rest of the five walked out. "So, what are you talking about?" Mantis asked. "Nothing really," said Naruto. "They're having a romantic moment," Viper said. "Without Shifu playing dad and worrying about Tigress," he added. It was true, after the Tai Lung incident, Shifu started seeing the five as his family. And Tigress just happened to be his daughter. Whenever Naruto took her on a date, Shifu would sometimes follow just to make sure they were okay. "I'm so lucky," Mantis said. "I don't have any problems with my dad. Maybe it's because Mom ate his head before I was born. I don't know." Viper slithered toward him and hissed. "Mantis, this isn't about you. We're here," Tigress said. They all looked to see a sunrise in the distance, behind Gongmen City, Tower of the Sacred Flame. On the top floor, the gorillas tore down banners and decorations. Then they followed Shin into the launch room, carrying a large cannon. Shin approached the large throne, saying, "My father's throne. He used to let me play here beside him, promising that one day this throne would be mine." The gorillas grabbed the chair and threw it out the window. Then they moved the cannon to where the chair was. "A little to the left," Shin said. "But it's so heavy, master," complained one of the gorillas. 30 years I've waited for this moment. Everything must be exactly as I imagined it. And I imagined it just a little to the left." The gorillas picked him up and moved him. "Perfect," said Shin. "With the gun at my side a little more," he said with the barrel moving more. "With the gun at my side, all of China will bow before me. We'll leave in 3 days, when the moon is full and the tide is high." He chuckled before looking at the fortune teller. "Now, you old goat, why don't you tell me my dash? Fortune?" she finished. "Future. I was going to say future," he said. "Look into your bowl and tell me what glory awaits." The fortune teller picked up her bowl and looked at it. "If you continue on your current path, you will find yourself." She then gave him a deadpan look. At the bottom of the stairs, Shin looked down and saw that she was at the bottom of the steps. I see. Shin walked over to her. "I see pain." She picked up one of Shin's feathers, making him cry out. "And rage," she said, biting into his robe. "How dare you!" he cried. "This is the finest silk in the province," followed by denial. He said, "This isn't fortune-telling. You're just telling what's happening. Now," she interrupted. "The most important time is now," she said, pointing at her bowl. Shin looked over and saw her feather and part of her robes. "But if you really want to see the future," She threw powder into the bowl, making it glow and smoke. A peacock, she said, as the smoke took the shape of a peacock. She is defeated by a warrior in black and white. The smoke transformed into a yin-yang symbol, then transformed into a leaf symbol. Nothing has changed, she said, remembering the same leaf symbol the first time she predicted Shin's future. Angrily, Shin pulled out one of his knives and threw it, breaking the bowl. He waved his robe, causing the smoke to escape. He gasped before saying, "That's impossible, and you know it." "It's not impossible, and he knows it," he argued. "OMs?" The fortune teller nodded towards the stairs with a smile as the wolf chief ran up. "Lord Shin, I saw a fox." "A fox?" Shin repeated before flying towards Boss Wolf and grabbing him by the neck. "A kung fu warrior. He fought like a demon. Big and furry. Soft and squishy. A little plush and cuddly," Boss Wolf explained. Shin looked into his eyes. "There are no more foxes. They all died with the leaf." The fortune teller approached them and used her staff to poke Boss Wolf's eye patch. "Even with his poor eyesight, he can see the truth." She then looked at Shin. "Why can't you?" she questioned. Shin didn't answer him as he looked at the wolf chief. "Find this fox and bring him to me," he ordered. "Yes, sir." Boss Wolf gasped as he was released and then ran down the stairs. Shin turned to see the knowing look in the fortune teller's eyes. "A fox lives. That's no good for you." "You're right," he said. "But being right is good for me," he replied. "Then I'll kill him and hurt you," he said. At that moment, a scathing sound caught his attention. He looked and saw the soothsayer biting his robes again. "Would you stop that?" The docks of Gongmen City, Naruto and his team jumped off the boat and climbed a small bridge. When they reached the top, they looked around. "That must be Shin's palace on the other side of the city," Tigress pointed out. "Okay, now we have to get there without being seen," Naruto said as everyone watched the wolves patrolling the city. "Under roofs or in disguise?" he asked. "I say costume," Viper said. "Naruto," Crane said, getting the fox's attention. "Isn't that the guy who punched you in the face?" he asked. Naruto watched Chief Wolf push a pig out of the way. When he saw the symbol, it seemed to glow as if it angered him. "We should take him out," he said until Tigress put her paw on his shoulder. "We need to get to that tower without being seen by those wolves," he said. Naruto nodded even though he wanted to hurt that wolf. They all went down, with Crane flying through the air. When they reached the bottom, they found a large costume that fit everyone. It was a Chinese dragon for a festival. Just before entering, Naruto heard a noise. He saw a wolf approaching them. A stand was in front of them and it was filled with decorations. It just so happened that the spot where he was standing made him look like a woman. The wolf looked at him questioningly and stepped forward. Naruto quickly grabbed the nearby fan and held it in front of his face while making laughing noises. He turned his face away from the wolf, but the wolf smiled and leaned into him. Watching Naruto headbutt the wolf, knocking it unconscious. "Yeah, okay. Anyway, where was I?" he said to himself before remembering to put his disguise back on. As everyone tried to get comfortable, the costume managed to knock over a small object and set fire to a fireworks stand. They continued walking and everyone noticed the wolves stealing from the animals. "This rice is raw!" a wolf shouted, catching their attention. They came closer and heard. "You stole all my metal vessels for Lord Shin!" cried the sheep as the wolf held it in the air. Angrily, the wolf slammed the bowl of rice against the ground, breaking it. "Either you cook my rice or I'll cook you!" he threatened. "Naruto," Viper whispered. "Do something!" she whispered loudly. Naruto thought for a moment and then nodded. Walking up to the wolf, who was about to attack the sheep, they used their tongues to touch its shoulder. "Hey!" Naruto said. "Hey!" the wolf replied before realizing who it was. Naruto quickly punched the wolf and put it in the costume where everyone started beating it up. From the side, a rabbit boy watched, and it looked like a large dragon ate the wolf and was doing something strange inside. The wolf was then thrown by its tail, looking disgusting to the boy. Naruto approached the sheep and said, "We are here to liberate the city and bring Shin to justice. You'll need help." The sheep replied, "Who do you have in mind?" Naruto asked, seeing that the sheep wasn't talking about itself. It's not safe to talk here, he said, looking around fearfully. Naruto nodded and used the disguise's mouth to pick up the sheep. Seeing this, the little rabbit ran away screaming. I'm talking to Master Ox and Croc. They're in Gongmen Jail in Black Dragon Alley. What? Are they still alive? Naruto exclaimed in a whisper. We have to get to that prison, Naruto said with the others nodding their heads. Thanks, sheep, he said, letting the sheep go. Just as they escaped, Wolf Boss appeared. Hey, stop that disguise, he ordered. Naruto and the others continued running until they collided with a cart full of peaches. They quickly jumped on it just as a pack of wolves appeared. Thinking quickly, they lashed the cart at the wolves, which knocked them over. Monkey and Mantis kept telling Naruto to go faster as they passed crates and animals. They had to make a sharp left turn because the wolves blocked their only exit. They reached an open street and were surrounded by 4 wolves. They ate 2 of them and shot the remaining 2 wolves. However, they accidentally shot Monkey out of the costume, and he landed in front of the antelope. He let out a nervous chuckle before putting his costume back on. They ran through narrow streets and ate the wolves they encountered. All the while, Crane watched, thinking, this is the strangest thing I've ever seen. They ran towards an open street again, but this time there were too many wolves. Now! Shouted the wolf chief, and they all used their swords and stabbed at the costume. Got you! He shouted as he threw the costume away, only to reveal crates full of lettuce with swords in them. Spread it out, search everywhere, he ordered. And what about there? Asked the wolf. Is there other than everywhere? Boss Wolf asked, making the other wolf look like an idiot. As they spoke, 4 barrels rose up and began to move away. Once they were free, everyone removed the barrels and looked around. They have to be close now, Naruto said. Look, Tigress said as she pointed to a sign. Gongmen Prison. Everyone looked around the corner and saw 2 wolves standing guard. Having an idea, Naruto tossed Mantis out of the cannon and let him roll near the wolves. Ah, that's cute, one wolf commented. The small barrel exploded, revealing an angry Mantis. Cute? It then flew toward them and threw both wolves against the wall. Seeing this, Naruto threw 2 barrels, which landed perfectly on top of them. Tigress punched open the doors, allowing Crane to enter and kick the first wolf unconscious. Tigress then jumped behind him and knocked out 2 more guards. Naruto finally entered and punched the only remaining wolf when he saw him charge at Tigress. Thanks, Naruto. They looked over the railing, after realizing they were upstairs, and saw several cells. At the first sign of trouble, I'll give you a signal, Monkey said before attempting to imitate a bird. You mean what Crane does? Naruto asked. Yes, said Monkey as Naruto and Tigress jumped. Crane approached with an annoyed expression. Excuse me, when did I make that noise? Both Naruto and Tigress looked through some cells. Master Ox, he called. Master Dash. That's when Naruto saw someone. Master Croc, he exclaimed, running over with Tigress following him. She reached the cell door and then saw the other animal. Master Ox, you're both alive! Naruto then started shaking the door. Let's go free you now. There should be a key around here somewhere, he said, looking around. Just then, Tigress's palm hit the door, making it fall down. Naruto gave her a deadpan look. I could have done that, he muttered as she smiled at him. She looked at the occupants of the cells and said, We're going to save Gongmen City, and walked away. After a moment she came back looking confused. You two don't want your city back, do you? Of course, Ox replied. Both he and Croc lifted the gate and replaced it, saying, But if we confront Shin, he'll turn the weapon against the city. So you're protecting Gongmen City by not protecting Gongmen City? Naruto said, confused. But if we fight together, Dash, then the gun would kill everyone, Ox said angrily. Naruto then had an idea. But what if we use? He stepped to the side, causing Ox to move the door to block him. Sneak attack! Naruto moved quickly so he got behind Ox and entered the cell. We go in and then dash, and then they'll stop you, Croc said as the door slammed shut in front of Naruto, pushing him out of the cell. Ox then cut through the middle bar and impaled them on both sides of the wall, causing the door to jam. By the unstoppable weapon, that still won't stop me from stopping the unstoppable weapon, Naruto argued. He then jumped on top of the door, causing it to spin and hit Ox's head. Naruto then moved the door to swing the other way for him to enter, kick Ox, and spin him out of the cell. Seeing this, Ox growled and swung the door back around. Somehow, Croc managed to get out, where he looked nervous towards Tigress. He knocked on the cell door in hopes of getting back in. Master Ox, Naruto said as he circled around the Grand Master. I'm not going to let you stay in this cell. I'd like to see you pull me out, Ox exclaimed. He quickly grabbed Croc's tail, which was still stuck through the cell door, and pulled. This caused the door to spin and Croc to go back inside while Naruto was thrown out. Tigress caught Naruto and spun him around. Thanks, she said with a smile. Come on, guys, Naruto said as he walked over to the door. What happened to being heroes? Naruto jumped, and Croc was thrown out. The only hero in this city is a dead one, Croc shouted. Naruto blocked the door so Croc couldn't get back in, but Ox grabbed him. Suddenly, the three of them were spinning around in the doorway. Naruto then crashed into the ground. Looking up, he saw Ox stop the door with Croc by his side. Like I said, you're not getting me out of this cell, he yelled. He then looked to his right and saw that he was out of the cell. He made a groaning noise just as the door fell apart. Finally, Naruto muttered as he left the cell. Now will you help us? He asked them. His response was for the two of them to simply go into the opposite cell. I'm staying on the top bunk, Croc said as the door closed. Ox looked at Naruto. Time to give up, Fox. Kung Fu is dead, he said sadly, causing the five's eyes to widen while Naruto narrowed his eyes. Kung Fu is dead? He repeated. Fine. Stay in this prison for all I care. You are both Kung Fu masters, and since you are not defending the city, you are dishonoring everything. The city in the memory of Master Rhino, he said, making her eyes widen then close sadly. Both of you watch as we save this city and stop Shun from destroying Kung Fu. Suddenly the gates burst open and three wolves burst in. One caught Naruto's attention because it was Boss Wolf. Monkey? Naruto yelled to his friend. The monkey's response was a weak bird call. You're mine! Naruto growled as he looked at Boss Wolf. I'll tell you what's yours, said Boss Wolf. My fist in your plush, cuddly, super soft face, yelled the strange threat. Both Monkey and Crane jumped and landed on top of the two wolves, knocking them unconscious. Oh, said Boss Wolf before running away. Get him! Naruto shouted as he and the five ran after the wolf. Get me out of here! Boss Wolf shouted to an antelope, as he jumped into a cart. Why, yes, sir! The animal stammered as he ran, pulling the cart. Naruto and the five exited the building, with the five running after Boss Wolf. Naruto, however, stopped and looked around before his eyes landed on a cart. Faster! Monkey shouted just as Naruto overtook the five. Yeah! Monkey continued to shout. Go, Naruto, go! Seeing that the fox was catching up, Boss Wolf ordered the antelope. Lose them! He then grabbed the cart and turned it left into an alley. Naruto was going to speed up as he passed through the alley, until Viper grabbed a pole and grabbed Naruto's tail. Wait! She yelled as she threw Naruto into the alley. He and the five were approaching the wolf chief when they all entered a market. The antelope, who was pulling Boss Wolf's cart, looked around in fear before the wolf picked it up. Watch out! He yelled before throwing the animal to the ground, its antlers pointing at Naruto. Seeing this, Naruto leaned to the left, causing the cart to crash through a support and into a wall. That wasn't very nice! Naruto shouted. Try this! Boss Wolf shouted as he began knocking over crates and supports. Before Naruto could do anything, the five rushed forward and moved everything out of the way. Thanks! Naruto shouted to his friends. Seeing that Naruto was still catching up, Boss Wolf shouted. Maybe something smaller! He then revealed a small cart containing 6 small bunnies. No, no! Naruto yelled before the bunnies landed on his face. Oh no, no! With his vision blocked, Naruto had to let go of the handles of his cart. This caused it to lean to the left and climb onto some bamboo scaffolding. Boss Wolf laughed when he saw all this. One of the bunnies moved so Naruto could see a bit, and his eyes widened. "Cute bunnies, out of my face!" he yelled. "Excuse me." "Okay, pardon me." His eyes widened even further when he saw they were running out of scaffolding. Thinking quickly, he slammed his left foot onto the left wheel. Sparks flew as the cart left the scaffolding and landed on the roof next to it. "Fire!" one of the bunnies yelled. Naruto looked and saw his left foot was on fire. On the ground, Tigress looked around. "We've lost them!" A scream caught her attention, so she looked up and saw Naruto with 6 bunnies on his face and his left foot on fire. Suddenly, the cart flew up, launching Naruto and the bunnies into the air, allowing one of its tails to put out the fire. Fortunately, the cart landed on 2 parallel wires. Naruto grabbed the handle and spun, using his tails to catch all the bunnies before dropping them back into the cart. He looked up and saw that they were about to crash into a building. "Crane, catch!" Naruto yelled as he used his tails to toss all the bunnies into the air. Crane easily caught 5 with his hat and the last bunny with his right foot. The cart slammed into the building, shattering it into pieces. It landed in the crop on one wheel. Blinking, he used his foot and began to push it forward. However, he grunted when he saw that he wouldn't be able to catch Boss Wolf. "Guy, I need a push!" Naruto yelled. "Mantis," Tigress said. Now, she then grabbed Mantis and allowed him to throw her. She was thrown, and as she approached Naruto, she used all her strength to strike him with her palm. Due to the force, Naruto shot like a bullet towards Boss Wolf. He was so fast that he even left a trail of fire behind him. Boss Wolf yelled in surprise as Naruto crashed into him. They both started trading blows as they stood on a cart. "Is that all you've got?" Boss Wolf mocked. "It feels like I'm fighting a big, old, fluffy cloud. Well, this cloud is about to bring thunder!" Naruto shouted as he used his foot to push the wolf up. Sign after sign began to hit Boss Wolf in a comical manner. "Your turn!" he shouted, grabbing Naruto's leg and lifting him up. More signals began hitting Naruto in the head. "Why are there so many signs?" Naruto yelled between the signs hitting him. He yelled in surprise as a large column was about to crash into him, until he and Boss Wolf started falling down the stairs. Watching the flyer and Boss Wolf move up and down, Naruto had an idea. He used his tails to hold him steady as he took a stance, fist forward. Because of the car, Boss Wolf's face kept crashing into it, making him repeat, "Ow," over and over again. As they reached the bottom of the steps, they came across a large ramp and the cart shot out. The second they hit the ramp, the cart fell to the ground, but Naruto and Boss Wolf flew through the air. As they were about to hit the ground, Naruto grabbed the wolf's arm and turned them so that Boss Wolf's front was pointing at the ground and Naruto had his knees on the wolf's back. As they hit the ground, it created a large shockwave that formed a small cloud of dust. Naruto stood up and saw that Boss Wolf was unconscious. Hearing running footsteps, Naruto turned and was hugged by Tigress. "Naruto, are you okay?" she asked. "Yeah, I'm fine. Doggy here won't be up for a while, and seeing where we landed, we'll be at the palace in no time," Naruto replied. "What makes you say that?" Mantis asked. "The army that's aiming deadly objects at us," Naruto said. The 5 then looked around and their eyes widened when they saw an army of wolves surrounding them. "Guess no one told you," Boss Wolf said as he stood up, surprising Naruto. "If you mess with the wolf, his fangs will come out." He then punched Naruto in the stomach, causing the fox to double over. "I've hit you twice. What are you going to do now?" the wolf growled. Naruto smiled, then did something no one expected. He raised his hands and shouted, "We surrender!" They were all put in different types of locks. "You can chain my body, but you'll never chain my—" Crane was interrupted by a large padlock enclosing his neck. "My body," he finished in a choked voice. "Hey, don't forget about the little one," Naruto said as he grabbed Mantis. "Did you just call me Dash?" Mantis was interrupted as Naruto found him in a small cage. "Naruto, what are you doing?" Tigress asked, confused. "Trust me," he replied. "I have a plan." The second he finished his sentence, a pair of handcuffs closed around his wrists, and then his tails. "This can't be," Naruto said as he looked at his handcuffs. 8-point acupressure cuffs? This is what they used on Tai Lung, right? Instead of answering, they were all dragged into the palace. Tower of Sacred Flames. On the upper floor, Shin took a stance with the sword on his staff. Greetings, Fox. We meet at last, he said as he thrust the weapon forward. He then frowned and said, No, no, no. He then went through another stance and finished by saying, We meet at last. He smiled. Yes, that's it. Greeting, Fox, we meet at dash. He turned and almost jumped when he saw the fortune teller standing there. You're afraid for a reason, he said. I'm not afraid, he argued. He comes to me in chains. If anyone should be afraid, it's… The fortune teller interrupted. Shin jumped back a little. Don't even think about it, he warned her when he saw her looking at his weapon. Outside the tower, Naruto and the others entered the courtyard where they looked at the tower. As they walked, Tigress warned, I hope this turns out better than your plan of cooking raw instant ramen by eating it raw and then drinking boiling water. Now that I regret it, Naruto replied while shuddering. This plan will work, because this one's going to work, he said before stumbling. He regained his balance before looking at the small trench he was trapped in. Looking up, everyone's eyes widened when they saw a damaged hammer with red tape around it. Boss Wolf stood next to the hammer and patted it before chuckling. Keep moving, he ordered. They entered the tower and Naruto groaned. What's wrong? Tigress asked. I hate stairs, he replied. At the top, Shin and the fortune teller were with a gorilla. They all heard someone approaching from the stairs and Shin pulled out a knife. Hey, how's everything going? Naruto asked as he and others appeared. A wolf poked Tigress with a staff and she kicked it, causing the wolf to jump back. The fortune teller's eyes widened when she saw Naruto. Shin's left eye twitched at Naruto's casualness. He quickly composed himself before saying, Greetings, Fox. See you in dash, yo, Naruto said with a smile. Do you have any ramen? He asked in a surprisingly casual manner. And no, Shin said awkwardly. You're smaller than I expected, the fortune teller said as she walked up to Naruto and hit him with her staff. Then he grabbed it and started looking at it more closely. Hey, enough poking around, he said. Strong, healthy, he said with a smile. Look, I don't know who you are, but please step aside, sir, Naruto said. Viper quickly whispered. That's a lady. Naruto's eyes widened at this. Oh, sorry. The beard threw me off. The fortune teller began stroking his beard. It's a little misleading, he admitted. Enough with this nonsense, Shin shouted angrily. He calmed down, but still looked angry. Bring me the prisoner, he ordered. Naruto and the others were placed in front of the barrel, on their knees. They couldn't help but gasp at the sight of the weapon. Do you really think he's the warrior destined to defeat me? Shin laughed. He couldn't even get to my palace without surrendering. Not me, the soothsayer replied. I know it is, he said with a smile. Shin laughed again. Oh, look at him. A lifetime of plotting his revenge and he comes to me on his knees. Naruto looked confused. A lifetime? Naruto repeated. We only heard about Master Rhino a few days ago, and we came to avenge him and stop you. Haven't you come to avenge anything else? Asked a now worried fortune teller. Well, yeah, Naruto said. I want to beat up the wolves for what they did. Nothing else? Asked the soothsayer. What else is there? Naruto asked. As they talked, Viper used her tail to try to unlock Tigress's handcuffs. You don't know, said the soothsayer in surprise. You know what? Naruto asked. Shin then laughed. What's so funny? Naruto asked, annoyed. Shin happily replied. The same thing you don't know. Someone could tell me already. Naruto shouted angrily. Shin then pulled out a knife and pointed it near Naruto's eyes. The only reason you're still alive is because there's no reason to kill someone who can't defeat me. Shin then began to laugh. Why are you laughing? Naruto yelled, his eyes red. Shin stopped laughing but kept a satisfied smile. Aim, he ordered. The cannon then pointed directly at Naruto and the others, while Viper tried to free Tigress. Chief Wolf prepared to turn on the cannon before Shin said, Fire! Without saying anything, Chief Wolf lit the cannon. Shin laughed but stopped when the cannon didn't fire. Well, turn the thing on, Shin yelled. I did it! Boss Wolf stammered as he lit the cannon again. However, for some reason, the cannon wouldn't light up no matter how many times Boss Wolf tried. Suddenly, Mantis appeared in the canyon and kicked the fuse out of Boss Wolf's hand and shouted, "Fear the bug!" As he caught it. Seeing Mantis, everyone looked at the cage she was supposed to be in, held by Naruto. Only to see the cage broken with Naruto smirking. Tigress suddenly roared as her cuffs broke. She punched Monkey and then he punched Vipers. She then cut off Crane's cuffs, allowing him to swing his wings and knock out the nearest wolves. Tigress then quickly destroyed Naruto's cuffs and everyone got into a stance. "Take the gun!" Naruto shouted as she punched a gorilla. "Tigress!" he shouted, allowing her to jump off his back. She flipped in the air and launched the barrel into the air, as Naruto ran at Shin. Mantis jumped after the barrel and kicked it towards the ground where it crashed into the ground. Naruto then jumped on top of Shin and as he landed on top of Shin, the peacock spread its feathers. Naruto looked at it, and his eyes widened as more memories appeared. He saw himself running through a burning forest. Then he transformed into Shin, standing in the middle of the village, ordering the wolves to burn everything. However, what caught Naruto's attention was that Shin was standing on top of a monkey wearing red and white robes. The monkey was covered in blood and wasn't moving. Naruto gasped as he stood up, allowing Shin to stand as well. "You were there." As Shin stood up, he grinned, a crazed look in his eyes. Yes, I was." Shin ran to the open door, which led to a balcony, and jumped. Using his feathers, he flew to a factory in the distance. A gorilla swooped in behind the fortune teller and picked her up, leaving the palace. Naruto ran to the balcony and looked at Shin's flying form. "You let Shin get away!" Tigress shouted as she and the others stood by Naruto's side. "At least we destroyed the weapon," Mantis said. As Shin landed in the factory, he looked over and looked at Naruto. "Fire!" he shouted as more cannons appeared, firing bombs. "Oh. No, there's a lot more to it," Mantis commented. They all had to back away when the bombs hit the balcony they were standing on. It caused an explosion that knocked them off their feet. When they landed, Crane looked up and grimaced at his damaged wing. "My wing! Help, Naruto!" Tigress yelled. "I'm coming!" Naruto yelled back before the ground collapsed behind him, and he fell. Acting on instinct, Naruto used his tails to grab onto the sides of the floor and hang in the air. "Someone help me up!" "No," Tigress said as she knelt beside the hole, carrying Crane. "Go down. Use the ropes." Naruto nodded, and they all jumped. They all jumped to each floor or grabbed onto the ropes holding the lanterns. From the factory, Shin said, "Run, run, little fox!" with a crazed look on his face. A cannon fired another bomb, hitting the building, along with other bombs. Naruto slid down a rope, but it was too short, so he fell and landed on his back. The others landed safely as he rolled onto his front. Tigress put Crane down and ran to Naruto. "Naruto, come on! We need you to focus!" she yelled as she pulled him to his feet. I got it! He yelled back. More cannons fired and hit the building, blocking the exit and causing it to start falling. "Damn it, we're trapped!" Naruto yelled. Tigress looked around and then said, "This way!" They all ran to the next floor and Tigress kicked the door open. When they got out, they saw an entire army of wolves on the walls, surrounding the tower, all holding flaming bows and arrows. They fired and Tigress grabbed a block of wood and used it to block the arrows that would have hit her. "Go back!" she yelled as she deflected more arrows. She ran a little and looked around. When she had an idea, she caught an arrow that would have hit her in the face, without looking. She ran over to the others and quickly grabbed Naruto's hands. "The only way out!" "What?" they all shouted at the same time. Tigress pulled Naruto out and then threw him up. However, he didn't let go and used the momentum to get up. They continued this, climbing up the building and letting go when it was safe. When the others caught up, they all ran to the top of the tower. "Where are they going?" Shin yelled in confusion and anger. "To the top!" Tigress shouted. "Come on, keep going!" Viper shouted as they neared the end. Seeing a bomb heading his way, Monkey ducked and used Crane's hat as a shield for his head. As the bomb flew past, Monkey raised his head with a grin, unaware that he set the hat on fire. As they neared the end, Naruto shouted, "Here we go!" And they all jumped toward the city. They dodged the flaming arrows as they approached a building. They all landed safely and quickly fled, avoiding more arrows. Seeing them run away, Shin kicked a gorilla in the nose. "Idiot!" he shouted angrily. "My nose!" said the gorilla in pain. Shin jumped into his factory and shouted, "Call the wolves! All of them! I want them ready to move!" He shifted and looked at a map. "The year of the peacock begins now." "Right now?" asked Boss Wolf from behind Shin. "Because it's the middle of the year, so you'd only get like half of the year of the peacock." Shin walked up to Boss Wolf in a menacing manner and unsheathed a knife. Seeing him, Boss Wolf let out a nervous chuckle. "And this is the year, of course, of the peacock." "Happy New Year, sir," Shin looked at Boss Wolf and silently ordered, "Get the wolves ready. We're loading the ships now." Seeing that the wolf wasn't moving, Shin shouted, "Now!" making the wolf run. "Now, now, 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 now!" Boss Wolf ran up the ladder and yelled at the wolves. "Move! Move, 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 move!" he shouted, causing each wolf to start working on more cannons. A wolf at the top of the factory howled, signaling the other wolves to gather inside. Naruto and the others sneaked through the alleys, avoiding the wolves. "This way," Tigress said, leading the way. They finally stopped near a corner and waited for the two wolves to leave. Once they were gone, the group ran inside Gongmen prison and hid. "You!" Master Ox shouted angrily. "What did you do? It's chaos up there. What happened to stopping Shin?" "Yeah, what happened?" Monkey asked as he and the others looked at Naruto. "Naruto, the truth," Tigress said angrily. "You had Shin." "What happened?" "It caught me off guard," Naruto said without looking at anyone. "The truth," Tigress said softly, causing Naruto to back away slightly. Looking hurt, Tigress said, "Fine. They'll keep you away from danger." She indicated to Masters Croc and Ox. "Very far away," chuckled Croc. "What?" Naruto whispered in disbelief. "You stay here," Tigress said before walking away. "Wait!" Naruto yelled as he walked over. "I have to go dash." He was interrupted when Tigress turned around and stomped on the floor, causing everyone to fall silent for fear of angering her further. "You stay here," Tigress ordered. "I'm leaving," Naruto said as he narrowed his eyes. "And you can't stop me." He tried to walk past her, but she turned him around, so he moved back. "Let me through," he growled with red eyes flashing, though no one noticed except Tigress. "Guys?" "No," Viper advised, only for Tigress to take a stand. "Ready," Tigress said. Naruto growled and rushed at Tigress. He threw a punch, and Tigress countered by grabbing his fist and spinning it around, then throwing it into the air. He landed on the ground but got back up. Everyone watched as Naruto was thrown back again, but this time he slammed into the side of the jail that held Masters Croc and Ox. Naruto landed on his side and gasped. "Stay down," Viper pleaded. "I have to get to him," Naruto said as he stood up. "Then tell me why," Tigress yelled. Naruto was silent for a moment, his eyes now red and slitted with anger. "You want to know why?" he gasped. He took a deep breath before shouting. "He was there. Shin was there when I watched my entire village burn to the ground." This made everyone's eyes widen. "And I want to know why." He took a step forward. "None of you are going to stop me. I don't care if I have to fight all of you, I'm going to Shin to find out. None of you can understand." Tigress had tears in her eyes at this. Her love was threatening to fight her just to know some answers. She squeezed her eyes shut and made her fists. "Tigress, don't!" Viper yelled, thinking Tigress was going to attack, but everyone was shocked when she hugged Naruto. This caused him to freeze, his eyes returning to normal and everyone's jaw hitting the floor. Tears fell from Tigress's eyes as she hugged him. "I understand," he whispered. She pulled back and looked into his eyes sadly. "But I can't watch the one I love die." This made Naruto open his eyes, but he didn't say anything. "We're leaving," Tigress said to the rest of the five before she left. Naruto stood there, not knowing what to do. "Don't worry," Ox said silently. You're better off here, Shin factory. While the wolves worked on creating more cannons and ammunition, Shin was speaking. You were wrong, diviner. We sailed to victory tonight. He looked at the goat. Your magic fox is clearly a fool. Are you sure the fox is the fool? Asked the fortune teller. You just destroyed your ancestral home, Shin. As he spoke, Shin grasped the blade of his staff and heated the tip with fire. A trivial sacrifice, he said, stabbing his map of China. The heated blade set the map ablaze. When all of China is my reward, so will you finally be satisfied? Will subjugating the entire world finally make you feel better? The soothsayer asked angrily. Shin smiled and shrugged. It's a start. I might as well turn the basement into a dungeon, he said, his voice laced with sarcasm. The cup you choose to fill has no bottom, he said. It's time to stop this madness. Why the hell would I do that? Shin asked rhetorically. So your parents can rest in peace, he said, making Shin bristle with anger. My parents hated me, he said angrily. Do you understand? They hurt me and I'll fix it, he whispered. They loved you, the soothsayer argued sadly. They loved you so much that sending you away killed them. For a moment, Shin's eyes filled with sadness. He sighed before saying, The dead exist in the past, I must deal with the future. It almost sounded as if he was trying to convince himself that what he was doing was the only way. Free the fortune teller, he ordered. A gorilla. She's of no use to me. Goodbye, Shin. I wish you happiness, he said sadly. Happiness, Shin said bitterly, must be taken. And I'll take mine. The fortune teller was escorted out of the factory by the bouncer. Out of factory, the furious five waited until the lookouts moved, then leaped past. Once past, they hid behind some barrels near the factory gate. They saw the wolves scurry and the cannons move before the gates closed. Tigress growled. If all those weapons leave the building, China will fall. We'll take down the building, Viper said, with the others agreeing. Mantis then caught his attention. How about this? He asked as he scooped up a small amount of gunpowder. He then rubbed it together, causing a small explosion that covered his face in charcoal. This will do the trick, okay, said Tigress. Let's go. I can't feel my face, Mantis complained. None of them noticed when a figure jumped onto a bamboo scaffolding that was next to the factory. It was Naruto, and he landed in front of two wolves and knocked them unconscious. Using this to his advantage, he grabbed their heads and made it look like they were walking and smiling. He walked past Boss Wolf, who was ranting. Did you hear him call it the year of the peacock? Hey, Naruto said in a husky voice, causing a wolf to wave its paw. Hey, Boss Wolf replied before returning to his rant. Naruto kept walking until he saw an open window. He walked over and placed the two wolves in crates before jumping through the window. And just in time, because a gorilla just picked up the wolves, thinking they were idling. As Naruto entered through the window, he looked around the factory carefully. No matter where he looked, he saw wolves working on making cannons and ammunition. Move, dogs! Faster, faster! Load them all! Shin shouted through the smoke. Naruto narrowed his eyes before silently climbing the ladder next to him and approaching Shin. He thought he had the advantage until he heard Shin chuckle. Greetings, Fox. Naruto turned and saw Shin as the smoke disappeared. Shin spread his tail feathers and Naruto saw the symbol flash. He growled before shouting. Tell me why you were there that night. What night? Shin asked, acting innocent. That night, Naruto said, putting emphasis on the word. That night, Shin said with a smile. Yes, I was there to see your village burn. Why? Naruto growled. I think it was something like that, Shin said as he used his foot to cut a chain. A large chain slammed into Naruto's position, causing him to clutch at the dangerous gear. Outside the factory, the five had a cart full of barrels set on fire. They burst through the factory gates and overturned the cart. Here's your New Year's present! Monkey shouted. I hope you like it, because you can't return it. Mantis shouted and everyone started walking away. They heard a scream and turned around. Naruto? Tigress yelled. What's he doing here? They looked at the barrels and realized they had to stop the impending explosion. Bring it back! Monkey shouted. Bring it back! The five then ran towards the barrels and tried to put out the flames while defeating all the wolves. Naruto tried to hold on, but his grip was loosening. Shin chuckled. Are you willing to die to find out the truth? Yes! Naruto shouted as he jumped onto the scaffolding Shin was on. He ran towards the peacock and tried to kick it, but Shin grabbed its foot and slammed it down. He then used his tails to sweep Naruto off his feet and over the edge. Grunting, Naruto landed on a conveyor belt and Shin kept jumping. Naruto looked back and saw that he was approaching a pit of fire, so he had to act fast. The five ran after Naruto, but the wolves kept getting in the way. We've got them, let's go! Mantis shouted with Tigress jumping on the wolves. Naruto ran but kept getting closer to the pit. He tripped on an object and grabbed a tooth. The belt shifted him and he fell over the edge, but he used his tails to catch him so the belt pulled him away from the fire pit. Shin looked pleased as he stared into the flames, believing Naruto to be dead, but a voice from behind stopped him. Looking for me! He turned only to see a gear moving. It eventually moved to show Naruto looking annoyed. That wasn't well timed. With that, Naruto jumped at Shin. Seeing this, Shin threw knives at Naruto only for them to be deflected. He ran at Naruto and jumped off, just as the wolves grabbed Naruto. Naruto! Tigress yelled as she grabbed a wolf and threw it at the wolves and Naruto. They were all knocked back and Naruto kept running towards Shin. Naruto! Get away from him! She yelled, but he didn't listen. Naruto climbed up a ladder and saw an opportunity, so he threw the tip, which he was still holding, and made it catch Shin's neck in a box. No more running, Shin! It looks like it! Shin said as he removed the pick. Now, answers! Naruto demanded with a glare. Oh, you want to know so bad! Shin gasped. You think knowing will cure you? Fill some crater in your soul? Well, here's the answer. He gasped again. That village hated you, they wanted you dead because of what you look like. But here, he said, opening a box to reveal a large cannon. Let me cure you. Naruto's eyes widened when he saw the cannon. Shin grinned like a man as he ignited the cannon and let it fire. No! Tigress yelled as Naruto was hit and shot off the building. She watched in horror as Naruto flew through the sky and away. He landed, and in that second, lightning roared through the sky. Dragon's Cave. Shifu was meditating until a thunderclap rumbled in the sky. He gasped and fell to his knees when he sensed something was wrong. He looked up at the sky in fear, hoping everything was okay. With Naruto, he floated down a stream, covered in wounds. He painfully looked up at the sky before landing on a bank. Just before he fell unconscious, he saw a figure approaching him. A few hours later he woke up when a drop of water fell on his head. He looked around and saw the fortune teller staring at a small fire, her back to him. He looked some more before noticing that it was covered in bandages and had needles sticking out of it in places. He looked back at the fortune teller and yelped in surprise when she stood next to him. He hissed in pain when he slammed his left arm against a wall. He looked back at the goat and saw it holding a hot drink. No, thank you, he said, only for her to push a needle into his head, forcing his mouth open. She poured the drink into his mouth and removed the needle, causing Naruto to gulp the drink down. You're lucky to be alive. You would have died if I had left you in the water, the fortune teller said as she walked back to the fire. Well, why save me? Naruto asked as he removed the needles. So that you can fulfill your destiny, he said. I don't understand, Naruto said before realizing where he was. Where am I? He asked. They were at, what Naruto assumed, the edge of a forest, and there were many abandoned buildings. Plant life had grown over almost everything, so it was safe to say no one lived here anymore. I'm surprised you remember so little, she said sadly. But then again, it's been over 10 years. Naruto grimaced and grabbed his head as memories of people screaming flashed through his mind. He got up and shakily walked out of the building. Perhaps you will remember, the fortune teller said as she looked at Naruto. What? Naruto asked. The nightmares I've been having? Nightmare or memory? Naruto looked towards a puddle before opening his eyes. The Leaf Village? He whispered as he looked around. Memories flashed through his mind and showed him people walking happily through the village, as he looked back at the village with a smile. He remembered being about 13 years old at the time and vowing to do anything to protect the village. This was a prosperous village, said the diviner. Young Shin was in line to rule Gongmen City. But he wanted more. I predicted that someone would stand in his way. A leaf villager. Naruto looked at the goat in surprise. But I could never have predicted what would come next. Naruto's head began to throb as he remembered the village being consumed by fire. Wolves were running around burning down houses and killing the villagers. He remembered Shin ordering the wolves to kill everyone. The wolves were about to kill him until the village leader stopped them. Naruto felt a drop of water fall on his head. He looked up and remembered what Shifu was going to teach him. He closed his eyes and began to assume the stance. Naruto had his palm facing the sky and a drop of rain floated on his hand. As he went through this, he let his memories return. He remembered him and the dog running through a burning forest, avoiding wolves that were chasing after them. Naruto made the raindrop move down his arms as he remembered the dog placing him in a boat. The dog looked up at him with a smile in its eyes before saying something that felt right to him. Those who break the rules are scum, but those who abandon their friends and comrades are worse than scum. Never abandon them, Naruto. Fight for them with everything you have, he thought, remembering the dog's words. He watched as the dog caught the wolf's attention and sacrificed himself to live. The memories ended when he placed the raindrop on a plant that guided it to the ground. Naruto gasped and knelt on the ground. Your story may not have a happy beginning, but that doesn't make you who you are. It's the rest of your story. Who you choose to be, the fortune teller said with a smile. Naruto smiled as more memories flashed through his mind. He remembered how he entered the valley, how he met Tsuchi and Ayam, went to the Jade Temple, was chosen as the Dragon Warrior, training to show who he was, learning Kung Fu, obtaining the Dragon Scroll, defeating Tai Lung, and having the entire valley bow down to him. Then he remembered his times with his friends and his kiss with Tigress, then all the moments he spent with her being happy. He looked down at the ground as tears flowed from his eyes. So who are you, Fox? The soothsayer asked. He smiled as he stood up. I'm Naruto, he said. And I'm the Fox Dragon Warrior. He opened his eyes to reveal that his pupils were slits but filled with determination. Gongmen City docks. The Furious Five were chained to two ships as the wolves prepared for their departure. Boss Wolf held a flame near their faces, showing their defeated faces. But Tigress was worse. Her eyes looked dead as she stared at the water. Such sad, sad faces, Shin mocked. But now is a time only for joy. You are going to be a part of something beautiful, Shin finished, whispering into Tigress's ear. She growled in pure anger. Once we reach the port, in front of the entire world, you and your precious Kung Fu will die. She turned around. Then China will know to bow to me. Set sail! The ships were passing through Gongmen City, causing the residents to gasp in fear. Honestly, guys, I never thought I'd die like this, Mantis said. I always thought I'd meet a nice girl and settle down, and then she'd eat my head. How sad. We can't lose hope, Monkey said. Naruto would want us to stay strong and never give up. Right, Tigress? He asked, but Tigress didn't say anything. The animals gathered on the bridge and watched, terrified by what was happening. Lord Shin, what's wrong with the bridge? Asked Boss Wolf. Shin never let his gaze waver. Nothing stands in my way, he said. A cannon moved and aimed at the bridge. Fire! Shin ordered. The animals moved quickly before the cannon destroyed the bridge. Coward! Tigress yelled, but Shin didn't respond. Shin! A voice shouted, catching everyone's attention. They all looked around before seeing a figure on top of a building. The figure was wearing a black cape that reached his shins and also had red clouds. He was also wearing a straw hat with tassels covering his face. He waved his hand and took off the hat, letting the moonlight fall on it. Naruto! Tigress gasped as tears of relief fell from her eyes. How many times do I have to kill the same damn fox? Shin growled. Shin! Naruto shouted, his voice reaching everyone's ears. It's time to end this, with joy! Shin shouted. He looked at the wolves. Aim and fire! The cannons pointed at Naruto, who just smiled in response. He quickly began jumping up the building as the cannon tried to follow him. When he reached the ground, Naruto jumped into the boat and began hitting the wolves, while the cannon continued to follow him. "Don't shoot!" shouted Chief Wolf. "Crossfire! Attack!" Shin yelled as the wolves charged. Naruto jumped over a canyon and blocked a wolf's attack. He kicked the wolf off the canyon and punched another wolf. He then grabbed an axe and threw it at his friends. "Monkey!" Tigress yelled as the monkey grabbed the axe with his tail. He swung it and cut the chains, freeing the 5. They jumped at Naruto as the wolves rushed at him. They all punched the wolves and Tigress said, "I'm glad you're okay. So, what's the plan? Stop Shin before he reaches the port," Naruto said. They then jumped over the wolves and began to fight their way through. A wolf with 2 swords jumped at Naruto, but he quickly grabbed it by the legs and threw it to the ground. "Viper!" he shouted. "Death puppet!" She tossed the wolf into the air and Viper wrapped herself around the wolf's torso. "Tigress!" she yelled and the tigress caught the wolf on her back. She ran through the wolf pack and Viper made the wolf attack the others. Naruto jumped onto another boat as Master Ox appeared, crashing into many wolves. "Master Ox!" Master Croc then jumped out of the water and kicked 2 wolves to death. "Revenge is served," he said with a big grin. "And Master Croc!" Naruto exclaimed with a smile. "Why?" was all Naruto could ask. "Your friend is very persuasive," Ox said, pointing behind him. Naruto turned to see someone pushing their way through a pack of wolves. The animal leaped into the light, and Naruto smiled. Master Shifu. Using his kung fu, Shifu spun around Naruto and his friends and knocked out all the wolves. "Quickly," he said. "Use their boats to block the way." Tigress ran to the front boat as fast as she could and kicked a cannon twice at the front of the boat, which began to tip over. Tigress went to the back of the ship and climbed onto the bridge as the ship slammed into it. Naruto followed the ships next to him and used his strength to pull both of them up. "Crane!" he shouted. Crane flew above the ships and flapped his wings, creating a shockwave that pushed the 2 ships forward. He then slammed into the first ship and blocked the way. Due to the force, Naruto was launched into the air and landed on the bridge. Most of the ships couldn't stop in time and collided with each other, causing the wolves to fall overboard. "No!" Shin yelled angrily. Naruto and the others then jumped off the bridge. They landed on a boat and started beating up all the wolves they found, while heading towards Shin. "Why aren't we shooting? They're picking off our gunners, sir." "They're getting closer," Chief Wolf replied. Shin looked and saw Naruto looking at him with a smile, all the while fighting the wolves. "Fire! Fire them!" Shin shouted desperately. "But sir!" shouted Boss Wolf, seeing a problem. "We'll kill our own. I said shoot them," Shin ordered. "Fire!" Boss Wolf growled and glared at Shin. "No," he said. Angrily, Shin threw a knife at the wolf, but Naruto saw this and quickly threw a piece of boat that blocked the attack. Boss Wolf was surprised and fell off the boat next to him, so Shin jumped into the cannon and took aim. Once he was ready, he lit the cannon. "Naruto!" Tigress yelled as she pushed Naruto out of the way, but he turned around and took the blast on his back. The fireworks exploded on impact, destroying the boats blocking the way, letting more boats through. Naruto was pushed out of the harbor with the others, including Boss Wolf. Sadly, he watched as the boats left from under the bridge and winced at the pain in his back. Looking around, he saw Tigress holding a wooden plank. He swam slowly toward her and held her paw. "Tigress?" he whispered. She weakly looked up but had no strength, so she bowed her head again. The boats stopped in a massive row that threatened anyone. Naruto looked directly at Shin and glared at him, who just smiled in response. He pushed Tigress off, and then slowly swam over to an overturned boat and climbed onto it. Not seeing Tigress try to reach him, Shin laughed as he saw that Naruto was still trying to fight back. "As you wish," the peacock grumbled. "Let's get this over with," he said to the other wolves. Each of the cannons were pointed directly at Naruto, who just stood there. Tigress and the others watched in horror and fear, hoping they wouldn't see Naruto get bombarded by the monstrous weapon. Then Naruto closed his eyes and got into a stance that made Shifu open his eyes. Naruto stopped and waited for the right moment. "Fire!" said Shin while smirking. A cannon was fired and the fireworks flew straight towards Naruto. In Naruto's mind, he saw the firework as a drop of water and chanted inner peace in his mind. At the last second, he reached up and caught the firework, then threw it behind him, causing it to explode into the water. Everyone's eyes widened when they saw this, but they were even more shocked when Naruto opened his eyes to reveal blue slitted eyes. From a distance, he looked directly into Shin's eyes as he extinguished the fire in his hand with a flick of his wrist. "Again!" Shin yelled. Another cannon fired and Naruto caught the firework, juggled it, and threw it, causing it to explode in the water near the boats. Another cannon was fired which Naruto simply dodged. "Kill him! Someone kill him!" Shin yelled. A cannon fired and Naruto caught the firework and threw it near the boats. Two more were fired simultaneously and Naruto jumped over them, then he caught a third shot and spun in the air. He threw it back and threw all the other shots near the boats. Shin watched in rage as the fireworks were thrown towards the boats, destroying them. "What? No! No!" Shin looked at Naruto and saw him looking at him with a smirk. He watched the fox return to its original stance, waiting for another firework. "Keep shooting! Keep shooting!" Shin's ship's cannon fired fireworks. This time, when Naruto caught it, the force pushed him back. He gritted his teeth before leaping into the air, the water swirling with him as he spun. Shin's eyes widened as the light from the firework made a fox head design with 9 spinning tails around it. Shin's ship's cannon fired fireworks. This time, when Naruto caught it, the force pushed him back. He gritted his teeth before leaping into the air, the water swirling with him as he spun. Shin's eyes widened as the light from the firework made a fox head design with 9 spinning tails around it. Shin's ship's cannon fired fireworks. This time, when Naruto caught it, the force pushed him back. He gritted his teeth before leaping into the air, the water swirling with him as he spun. Shin's eyes widened as the light from the fireworks made a fox head design with 9 tails swirling around it. Naruto then jumped off the boat and flew straight toward Shin's boat. Just before he launched the firework into the last cannon, Naruto shouted, "Rasengan!" And the explosion caused everyone to close their eyes to the light. After a few minutes, Shin looked around from the ground he was lying on. He saw that every single one of his ships was destroyed and that his own cannon was destroyed and hanging above him with a few ropes holding it up. "How did you?" Shin gasped. "How did you do it?" he asked, knowing that Naruto was in the back. Naruto looked at Shin, his eyes back to normal, and replied, "What do you mean?" he asked back. "How did you find peace?" Shin asked as he looked at Naruto. "I took your parents' everything. I scarred you for life," Naruto smirked. "You were right about one thing. My village hated me." Shin looked at Naruto confused. "Only a few people cared about me and they died by your hand. But I guess if it weren't for you then I wouldn't be here." Naruto then looked around before his eyes landed on his friends. "I wouldn't have found a family or a home." He then looked straight at Tigress who smiled at him, and he smiled back. "And I wouldn't have found the one I love. It was because of them that I was able to fight you and defeat your so-called unstoppable weapon." "I don't understand," Shin said as he stood up. "An old turtle once told me that yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today is a gift. That's why it's called the present. He meant that we have to let go of the past, forget about the future, and focus on today. You've also left the past behind because it doesn't matter and it never will. What matters now is what you choose to be now," Naruto said wisely. "You're right," Shin whispered before gaining a crazed look. "I choose this," he shouted as he pulled out 3 knives and attacked Naruto. The fox dodged the blow and jumped back, followed by Shin. Naruto spun around Shin, who slashed his cheek, making it bleed. Shin then threw the knives and Naruto slammed his foot on the floor of the boat. A piece of wood broke off and Naruto used it to block the knives. Shin then grabbed a sword and jumped at Naruto with a slash. He rolled out of the way and Shin cut a rope. Naruto continued dodging the blows and Shin never realized he was cutting ropes. Naruto rolled out of the way of a horizontal slash. He looked up when he heard a noise and saw the broken barrel falling. Without thinking, Naruto jumped off the boat as Shun looked up. The cannon exploded, throwing Naruto near the Gongmen's city harbor. He stepped out, and the city's animals cheered with happiness. Hearing footsteps, Naruto saw a tigress in a boat next to him, her paw outstretched. He smiled and took it, letting her help him up. "You did well," she said with a smile. Naruto smiled and pulled Tigress into a kiss which surprised her, but she enjoyed it. The kung fu masters watched, and their jaws hit the floor again in disbelief, although the five should have been used to it by now. When the kiss ended, Monkey, Viper, and Mantis jumped towards Naruto and hugged him as they all fell over. Naruto laughed and watched Shifu approach. "It seems you've found inner peace," he said proudly before giving an annoyed look. "And at such a young age. Well, I had a pretty good teacher," Naruto said with a smile before pulling Shifu into the hug. Naruto looked over and smiled before looking back and saw Shifu standing on the dock with a smile. "Naruto," Boss Wolf said as he approached. Some people tensed when they saw the wolf, but he looked sad and hopeful. "Yes?" Naruto said, preparing himself in case of an attack. The wolf hesitated before answering. "I just wanted to apologize for everything. For what my pack did to your village and for what happened recently. We shouldn't have followed Shin's orders, but we pledged to him." Then he sighed. "And I wanted to thank you for saving my life." Naruto smiled and placed his paw on the wolf's shoulder. "Apology accepted," he said. "Now you and your pack have a new beginning, so use it wisely." "Thank you," said Boss Wolf. "I was also wondering if I could join the temple. My pack is gone, wanting a new life, but I want to earn everyone's forgiveness." "Well, you'd have to ask Master Shifu," Naruto said. The wolf looked at the red panda with a nervous expression. Shifu looked completely serious and said, "You've done terrible things in your life, many of which should never be forgiven." Then he smiled. "But if the Dragon Warrior thinks you deserve a second chance, then you can join." "Oh, thank you," Boss Wolf said loudly. "I promise I'll do whatever it takes." Everyone smiled and went back to celebrating. Fireworks exploded in the air, making everyone smile and enjoy the spectacle. Naruto stood up and pulled Tigress in for another kiss, earning everyone a cheer. 1 month later, Naruto stood outside the Jade Palace with a smile as he looked back at the valley. He heard a noise behind him and saw Tigress approaching him. He put his arm around her shoulders and wrapped his tail around her. She smiled as she rested her head on his shoulder. "So, what are you doing here?" she asked. He shrugged. "Just looking at the scenery," he replied. "You know when everyone was celebrating and how the kids started asking us questions?" "Yes?" she replied with a raised eyebrow. Naruto smirked. "I couldn't help but be surprised when you held a little baby rabbit." He blushed in embarrassment at this. "Why did you mention that?" she asked. "I don't know, it just made me think about us and the future," she laughed lightly. "Well, don't get any ideas, you'd have to make it official first," she said jokingly. However, she didn't expect Naruto to put a necklace around her neck and ask her, "So will you marry me?" Tigress didn't have to think about that as she smiled and whispered, "Yes," before kissing Naruto with all the love she had. They broke apart and looked back at the scenery before Tigress glanced at the necklace. It was a simple jade necklace, but to Tigress, it was beautiful. "Where did you find this?" she asked. "The leader of my old village gave it to me, saying it belonged to one of his students. Then he gave it to my mother, and then he gave it to me. And now I've given it to you," he replied. "I can't accept this," Tigress protested. "Trust me," Naruto said. "My mother would want you to do it, almost as much as I want you to." With that they kissed again and had high hopes for the future. Many miles away, in a distant village, many animals lived peacefully. A fox with long red hair and violet eyes. She wore a long, flowing red kimono and was meditating on a small hill. She gasped before looking up at the sky. The villagers were all looking at her. "My child is alive," she said with a smile.
Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.